On the day the college entrance exam results were released, the class beauty, with red-rimmed eyes, begged the whole class to retake the year with her. My childhood friend took the lead in responding, and the others all followed suit. I tried desperately to stop them, but was subjected to online abuse so severe that I withdrew my application and killed myself. After being reborn, I coldly watched this farce unfold, quietly blocked everyone, and filled out my college applications alone, choosing a university thousands of miles away. Later, they discovered that the class beauty had already been accepted by a prestigious foreign university and even mocked the entire class as simping dogs. On Instagram, the air conditioning in the milk tea shop was turned up high, yet I broke out in a cold sweat. Everyone, could you please not submit your college applications and repeat the year with me? Xian's voice trembled with tears, her watery eyes sweeping over everyone present before finally settling on Chin Mubai. I gripped my thigh tightly, the pain telling me this wasn't a dream. 20 minutes ago, I had clearly jumped from the top floor of the teaching building, and now I was back at this moment that changed my life forever. Yeah, what's wrong? You look so pale. Lin Shiyu, sitting beside me, nudged my arm. I sprang to my feet abruptly, and the chair scraped across the floor with a harsh, grating sound. Everyone's eyes turned to me, including Xian's dissatisfied gaze and Chin Mubai's puzzled expression. Sorry, I just suddenly remembered something came up at home. I need to go first. I grabbed my bag, my voice calmer than I expected. Yenyu, Chin Mubai called after me. Xian is talking about something serious, and you're just leaving like that. I looked back at him. That face, which had once made my heart race, now only filled me with disgust. In my past life, it was this person who led the online mob against me and personally drove me to my death. Her affairs have nothing to do with me. I threw out those words and walked out of the milk tea shop without looking back. The summer heat hit me in the face, yet I felt clearer than ever before. I had been reborn, returned to that afternoon right after the college entrance exam results had come out. Before I submitted my college applications, my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a message from Chin Mubai. Yeah, what's wrong with you? Shin is so upset, can't you be a little more understanding? I let out a cold laugh and blocked his number directly. In my past life, I was too understanding of others, which was why I ended up in such a miserable state. Just as I reached the bus stop, my phone rang again. This time it was a message from the class group chat. Xian sent a voice message, her voice choking with tears. I know my grades are bad, and I only scored 400 points. But I never expected Yenyu to look down on me like this. Then came Chin Mubai's message. Yenyu, you've really disappointed me. Xian just wanted everyone to stay with her and repeat the year together. If you don't want to join, fine. Why say something so hurtful? I took a deep breath, opened the group members list, and decisively tapped leave group chat. The bus slowly pulled up, and I found a seat by the window, looking out at the familiar street scenery. In my previous life, I had tried to stop their crazy behavior, and in the end, I became the target of everyone's criticism. This time, I would never repeat the same mistakes. My phone rang again. It was an unfamiliar number. Yenyu, I'm the class monitor Lu Wei. Everyone's talking about you in the group. It's not really appropriate for you to leave the group like that, is it? I replied. Class monitor, please tell them for me that I wish Xian success in her repeated year. As for how I fill out my own college application preferences, there's no need for everyone to worry about it. After sending that message, I blocked the class monitor too. The bus reached the stop, and I got off and walked in the direction of home. When I passed by the community notice board, there was a congratulatory notice posted on it that read, "Congratulations to our community resident Yenyu, who achieved an excellent score of 645 on the college entrance exam." I gave a scoff, tore down the notice, crumpled it into a ball, and tossed it into the trash can. Yenyu, I heard you scored 645, that's amazing. Aunt Zhang, a familiar neighbor in the community, walked toward me and greeted me with a smile. Hello, Aunt Zhang. I nodded politely and returned the greeting. Back home, Mom was cooking in the kitchen. Yeah, you're back. The party ended so early. Yeah, I was a little tired, so I came back first. I put down my backpack, walked into my room, and locked the door. I turned on the computer and logged into the college entrance exam application system. In my previous life, I had applied to Shanghai Jiaotong University, and they ended up ruining me. This time, I chose Sun Yat-sen University School of Medicine in Guangzhou without hesitation. After filling out my preferences, I clicked submit and then cleared my browsing history. I wasn't even planning to tell my parents, at least not before I was admitted. My phone vibrated again. It was a message from another classmate. Yenyu, you've really gone too far. Mo said you blocked his number. Xin cried so hard, and everyone is discussing how to help her. I deleted the message before finishing reading it and added this number to the blacklist. As night fell, I stood by the window, looking at the lights in Chin Mabe's house across the way. At this time in my previous life, he should have been calling door to door, persuading classmates to hand over their college application passwords to Xin for unified management. Sure enough, before long, the doorbell rang at my house. Yeah, Mabe is here to see you. Mom shouted from downstairs. I gave a cold laugh and turned off the room light, pretending I was already asleep. Let this bunch of idiots fend for themselves too. Yeah, open the door. Chin Mabe's voice came from downstairs, accompanied by rapid knocking. I lay on the bed, covering my ears with a pillow. This child, how can she sleep so soundly? Mom muttered, her footsteps gradually fading away. I pulled out my phone and saw that there were now a dozen or so more unread text messages on the screen. They were all from different classmates, and the content was roughly the same, all accusing me of being cold-blooded and ignoring our classmate bond. Most ridiculous of all was a message from Lin Shiyu. Yeah, I know you and Mabai are close, but he really needs your support right now. Shin said if we don't unite and stay with her while she repeats the year, she might do something drastic. I let out a cold laugh and replied, then did you give her the application password? As soon as I sent the message, Lin Shiyu replied instantly. Not yet, but Mo said it's for everyone's own good. He said Shin knows someone at the Education Bureau and can help us get the information-based exam questions, so we can do better on next year's test. Shiyu, what score did you get? I asked. 619, more than 30 points higher than on the mock exam, she replied quickly, adding a happy emoji. So why did you give up this year's admission offer? You could have gone to a decent 211, the chat box showed. The other person is typing, but it took a long time before Lin Shiyu finally sent, but Shin said true friendship has to stand the test. I didn't reply anymore and directly blocked this deskmate, who had been with me for 3 years. Some people are destined to run into a wall before they realize it hurts. The phone suddenly vibrated, and an unknown number called. I hesitated for a moment, then still answered it. Yenue, this is your homeroom teacher, Teacher Lee, came the familiar voice from the other end of the line. I heard you left the class reunion early today and even left the class group chat. I tightened my grip on the phone, my heartbeat quickening. In my previous life, Teacher Lee had also called at this very time to mediate, but instead he ended up becoming an accomplice to Chin Mabai and the others. Teacher Lee, I just feel that I'm not like them. I tried to keep my voice calm. Oh, what conflict can't be resolved between classmates? Teacher Lee said earnestly. Xin didn't do well on this exam, so everyone should care about her more. Chin Mabai said you want to apply to Shanghai Jiaotong University. That's a very good school, but you also need to pay attention to moral character and self-cultivation. I abruptly hung up the phone, trembling with anger. Again, this was happening again. It had been the same in my past life. They always had morality and friendship on their lips, yet did the most despicable things. In my past life, I cared too much about what others thought, which is why they drove me to a dead end. Early the next morning, the doorbell rang again. Through the peephole, I saw Chin Mabai. Dark circles ringed his eyes, and he looked like he hadn't slept all night. Yeah, I know you're home, he said, pounding on the door. Shin said that as long as we stay united, we'll all be able to get into better schools next year. Chin Mabai, you scored 615 points. I said word by word, this score is enough for you to get into a 211 university. Are you sure you want to give it up for Xin? His eyes flickered, but quickly became resolute again. Xin is more important than anyone else. She said that if we accompany her to repeat a year, she'll agree to be with me, so that's how it is. I almost burst out laughing. In my previous life, I never knew until I died that Chin Mabai obeyed Xin without question because of this ridiculous promise. Then I wish you happiness. Just as I was about to close the door, Chin Mabai suddenly braced his hand against the doorframe. Yenyu, you're not allowed to submit your college application choices. He glared at me viciously. Xin said that if anyone is found filling them out in secret, they'll be making enemies of the whole class. I slammed the door shut and locked it from the inside. My heart pounded wildly in my chest, not out of fear, but anger. What gave them the right? What gave them the right to decide my life? Ding dong, my phone popped up a notification from the class group chat. Although I'd already left the group, Lin Shiyu added me to a new one, which had only 5 people in it. Yenyu, the 4 of us have thought it over and decided to apply normally after all. Lin Shiyu messaged me privately, but could you not tell Ian Xin and Chin Mabai? We're afraid they'll. Looking at that message, I suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of irony. In my previous life, these people had been the main force behind the online abuse against me, together with Chin Mabai. You decide for yourselves, I replied. I'm not taking anyone's side. Putting down my phone, I walked to the window and saw Chin Mabai still pacing downstairs. He kept making calls, his expression growing more and more anxious. It seemed his united front had already begun to fall apart. Serves her right. I drew the curtains, turned on the computer, and started searching for information related to Sun Yat-sen University School of Medicine. 3. A week after the volunteer application system closed, I was at home sorting through my high school textbooks one evening when my phone began vibrating frantically. It was more than a dozen messages from Lin Shiyu, each with exclamation marks. Yeah, something huge has happened. Ian Xin has been exposed. She never planned to retake the exam. She already got an offer from the University of Toronto. I raised an eyebrow and replied, what's going on? Lin Shiyu directly sent me a video link. After I clicked it, I saw Ian Xin in a lavishly decorated room, smiling into the camera and laughing uncontrollably. Family, who gets this? Ian Xin in the video said in an exaggerated tone. Those dumb classmates of mine from high school cracked me up. They didn't even know that I had already gotten an offer from the University of Toronto before the college entrance exam. My fingers froze on the screen. I deliberately scored 400 points just to see how many people would give up submitting their applications for me. Ian Xin proudly waved the admission letter in her hand. Guess what? Almost the entire class fell for it. Especially Chin Mabai. He believed everything I said and was as obedient as a dog. At the end of the video, she even made a face. I hope the classmates who repeated a year for me can do well next year, but even if they do, it still won't compare to me going abroad to polish up my resume. When the video ended, I was left unable to recover for a long time, although I had long known Ian Xin's true colors. Seeing her trample on her classmates' sincerity with my own eyes still made me feel nauseated. Lin Shiyu sent another message. Yeah, the whole class has blown up now. Chin Mabai is searching everywhere for Ian Xin like a madman, but her whole family has already moved away. I replied calmly. So, have you all submitted your college applications now? I did, but some people already missed the first application period. Lin Shiyu sent a crying face. Chin Mabai has it the worst. For Ian Xin's sake, he really didn't fill out any applications at all. I closed the chat window and didn't reply. This was karma, I suppose. In my past life, he destroyed my dream of going to college. In this life, he ruined his own future with his own hands. The phone rang again. This time it was the class monitor. Lu Wei, Yenyu, did you know about Ian Xin's plan all along? Why didn't you tell us? I let out a cold laugh and typed back. I warned you, but who among you listened? You still couldn't just stand by and watch everyone get fooled. The class monitor sent a voice message, his voice full of anger. Do you know how many people ended up having to repeat the year because they missed the application deadline? I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my computer and saved this conversation, along with the earlier video, into a folder. I had a feeling these people would soon turn their guns on me. Sure enough, early the next morning, the class group chat was already in an uproar. Although I had already left the group, Lin Shiyu kept forwarding me screenshots. It must be that Yen Yu and Ian Xin were in cahoots. One classmate said in the group, she left way too decisively at the time. Exactly. If she really had our best interests at heart, why didn't she keep trying to stop us? Another classmate chimed in. The funniest part was Chin Mabai's message. Yen Yu, I know you're watching, just wait, I'll definitely make you pay. Looking at these messages, I suddenly felt it was absurd beyond belief. In my previous life, I desperately tried to stop them, only to be driven to death by online abuse. In this life, I chose silence. And they still wanted to pin the blame on me. How could people be so shameless? I opened the folder where I had saved the evidence, sent Ian Xin's video to the class monitor, and added a line. The truth is right here, you can see for yourselves. After sending that message, I blocked the class monitor and all the classmates who were still in contact with me. I had already seen enough of this farce. A week later, I was reading at home when Mom suddenly rushed upstairs in a panic. Yeah, There's a boy downstairs saying he's looking for you, and he looks downright menacing. I looked down from the window and saw Chin Mabai standing downstairs, his hair disheveled and his eyes bloodshot, completely lacking the charm of the school heartthrob he once had. Yenyu, come down here. Seeing me, he looked up and shouted hoarsely, you ruined my life, you're going to take responsibility. Calmly, I picked up my phone and dialed 110, hello. Someone is causing trouble downstairs at my house and threatening my personal safety. After hanging up the phone, I stood by the window and coldly watched Chin Mabai. Like a madman, he shouted downstairs, drawing a crowd of neighbors, Yenyu, you clearly knew about Ian Xian's plan, so why didn't you tell me? He waved his fists. I gave up my 615 points for her, now I've lost everything. Are you satisfied? I remained silent the whole time. The police arrived soon after and took away the emotionally unstable Chin Mabai. Before leaving, he was still hysterically shouting that he would get revenge on me. That night, I received an admission text message from Sun Yat-sen University. Looking at the words on the screen, congratulations, you have been admitted to the Sun Yat-sen University School of Medicine. I let out a long sigh of relief. At last, my life was about to begin again, for on a morning in mid-August, I stood at the front door with my suitcase, taking one last look around the home I had lived in for 18 years. Are you really sure you don't want us to take you to Guangzhou? My mother's eyes were red as she helped me straighten my collar. No need, I'm already this old, I said, hugging her. Besides, transportation is so convenient now. If I miss you, I can come back anytime. Dad silently handed me an envelope from the side. There's 20,000 yuan in here, keep it for emergencies. The password is your birthday. I took the envelope, my throat tightening slightly. In my past life, when I was being attacked online, my parents had also supported me unconditionally like this. Unfortunately, back then I was too fragile and couldn't make it through. Thanks, Dad. I forced out a smile. Don't worry, I'll take good care of myself. When I walked out of the residential complex, I subconsciously looked toward Chin Mabai's home. Since the day he was taken away by the police, I hadn't seen him again. I heard from the ladies in the complex that he had been detained for a few days for causing trouble, and after he got out, he was completely dispirited, staying locked at home and never going out. Serves him right, I sneered inwardly. Compared with what he had done to me in my past life, this punishment was mild. The taxi slowly headed toward the airport. I opened my phone and saw the last message Lin Shiyu had sent last night. Yeah, Chin Mabai has gone crazy. He contacted every classmate he could reach and said he wanted to jointly report you to Shanghai Jiaotong University, saying that there was something wrong with your morals. I replied, let him report me. It's not like I applied to Shanghai Jiaotong University anyway. After sending that message, I shut my phone off completely, took out the SIM card, and replaced it with my new Guangzhou number. From now on, I had no more ties to that city or those people. As the plane took off, I looked out at the city's shrinking outline and suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of relief. In my past life, I was trapped in that city, driven to a dead end by those so-called friends and classmates, but in this life, I finally soared into a sky of my own. The campus of Sun Yat-sen University was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Lush banyan trees, antique and elegant red buildings, and students bustling back and forth, full of youthful energy. As I walked along the campus paths, I took a deep breath, as if even the air itself were free. The check-in process went smoothly, and I quickly got my dorm key. When I pushed open the dorm room door, there was already a short-haired girl inside, tidying up her bed. Hi, you must be Yenyu, right? She enthusiastically held out her hand to me. My name is Su Wen, from the clinical medicine department. You are too, right? I nodded and shook her hand. Hello, I'm Yenyu. Great, from now on, we're roommates. Su Wen took my luggage for me. Do you know, the four of us in this dorm are all from different provinces, and you are. I'm from H province, I replied with a smile, though I felt a little dazed inside. How long had it been since anyone had chatted with me so innocently like this? In my previous life, from the end of the college entrance exam to the moment before I killed myself, I had lived in criticism and abuse almost every day. H province, then your Gaokao score must be really high. Su Wen blinked. I heard the cutoff scores there are especially high. Not bad, 645 points. I answered casually. Wow, you're a top student, Su Wen exclaimed. I scored almost 30 points lower than you. After settling my luggage, I took a walk around the campus alone. As I passed the bulletin board at the School of Medicine, a poster caught my eye. freshman mental health lecture, how to adapt to college life. I stood in front of the poster, unable to move on for a long time. If my past self had had the chance to attend a lecture like this, maybe I wouldn't have taken the path to ruin, would I? Student, are you interested in this lecture? A gentle female voice came from behind me. I turned around and saw a female teacher wearing glasses smiling at me. I was just looking around. I was a little flustered. I'm a teacher in the psychology department, surnamed Chen. She adjusted her glasses. When freshmen first enter college, many students feel a bit unaccustomed to everything. If you have any troubles, you can come to the counseling center anytime and talk to me. I nodded, and suddenly my nose stung with emotion. So there were still such kind people in this world who cared about strangers. Thank you, Teacher Chen, I said sincerely. I'll remember that. Back at the dorm, I opened the newly bought laptop and logged into my long-unused social media account. As soon as I went online, dozens of message notifications popped up, most of them from high school classmates. I opened the top one. It was from the class monitor, Lu Wei. Yenyu, Qin Mabai really sent a joint letter to Shanghai Jiaotong University saying that there's something wrong with your character. You'd better contact the school right away and explain yourself. I calmly replied, thanks for the heads up, but I didn't apply to Shanghai Jiaotong University. Then came a message from Lin Shiyu. Yeah, something huge has happened. After Qin Mabai found out that you never applied to Shanghai Jiaotong University at all, he completely lost it. Now he's telling everyone everywhere that you lied to everyone and that you're in cahoots with Yin Xian. I let out a cold laugh and replied, he can say whatever he wants. Anyway, I'm no longer in H province. Finally, I opened the high school class group marked 99+. Although I had already left the group, Lin Shiyu had taken screenshots of all the chat records and sent them to me. The group was already in utter chaos, with everyone accusing each other. It's all Qin Mabai's fault. If he hadn't taken the lead in supporting Yin Xian, how could we have missed the application deadline? Did you not have any brains yourselves? Who was the one happily handing over the password back then? What's the use of saying this now? My parents are about to explode with anger. I got 589 points. Now I can only retake the year, and Qin Mabai's statement was the most ridiculous of all. It's all Yen Yu's fault. She clearly knew the truth but didn't tell us. She's Yin Xian's accomplice. Looking at these messages, I suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of irony. In my previous life, they had done the same thing, dumping all the blame on me. The difference was, this time I was already thousands of miles away, and they could no longer hurt me. I closed the chat window and was about to log off when I suddenly received a message from a stranger. Yenyu, do you think running to Guangzhou means you're safe? I know you're at the Zhongshan University School of Medicine. My blood froze instantly. Who was this? How did they know where I had gone? Then another message came in. You ruined the future of the entire class. We'll settle this account slowly. I took a deep breath and replied calmly. Who are you? If you've got the guts, come out and say it under your real name. The other side didn't reply again, but I already felt a chill run down my spine. It seemed I had still underestimated how crazy those people were. Just as I was thinking about what to do, Su Wen pushed the door open and walked in. Yenyu, the counselor said there'll be a class meeting tomorrow morning. Don't forget. I forced out a smile. Okay, thanks for the reminder. Lying in an unfamiliar bed at night, I couldn't fall asleep for a long time. I had thought that coming to Guangzhou would let me completely escape the past, but now it seemed I was still too naive. Those high school classmates I had abandoned clearly had no intention of letting me off easily, especially Qin Mabai. He has nothing now, and he's bound to latch onto me like a mad dog and refuse to let go. I got out of bed, turned on the computer, and began organizing all the evidence. Yin Xian's video, the classmates' chat records, Qin Mabai's threatening messages. If those people really refuse to let it go, I don't mind using legal means to protect myself. Outside the window, the banyan trees of Sun Yat-sen University swayed gently in the night breeze. 5. After the class meeting ended, I walked alone toward the library. Guangzhou in September was still sweltering, and sunlight filtered through the gaps in the banyan leaves, casting dappled patterns on the ground. Yenyu, a familiar voice came from behind me, and I froze all over. Turning around, I saw Su Wen chasing after me. Out of breath, why are you walking so fast? Didn't we agree to go to the cafeteria for lunch together? I let out a breath of relief and forced a smile. Sorry, I forgot. You've been distracted a lot lately. Su Wen hooked her arm through mine. Are you homesick? I shook my head and gave no explanation. I hadn't told anyone about that anonymous threatening letter. Every day as I walked across campus, I would subconsciously scan my surroundings, afraid of seeing a familiar face. The cafeteria was noisy, and Sue-Won and I found a corner seat to sit down. After eating just a few bites, my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a multimedia message sent from an unfamiliar number. I opened it, and my hand shook so badly that my chopsticks fell to the floor. The photo showed me walking out of the teaching building yesterday. It was clearly taken secretly. What's wrong? Sue-Won looked at me in confusion. It's nothing. I quickly locked the screen. Just saw a cockroach. Sue-Won took it at face value and started complaining about how huge Guangzhou cockroaches are. I nodded mechanically in agreement, but my mind was in complete chaos. Had that person really come to Guangzhou, or had they hired someone to follow me? Back at the dorm, I immediately opened my laptop and tried to trace the number. Although I wasn't a computer science major, my previous life's experience with online harassment had led me to learn some basic cybersecurity knowledge. Unfortunately, the other party had clearly used a virtual number, and I couldn't find any useful information. Just as I was about to give up, another message popped up. Meet at the cafe by the school's west gate at 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Don't even think about calling the police, or I'll print your glorious deeds into flyers and scatter them all over Zhongda. I stared at the message, my fingers trembling slightly. What exactly did this person want? Money, revenge, or ding dong, another message. Oh, and remember to bring 50,000 yuan, that's what you owe us. I gave a cold laugh and replied, who are you, Qin Mabai? The other side didn't answer, but my intuition told me it was probably him. In my last life, he ruined my college dream. In this one, since he couldn't get into college himself, did he want to ruin my college life? I shut down the computer and tossed and turned on the bed. Should I go or not? Calling the police might indeed provoke him, but obediently giving him money wasn't the answer either. At 2:50 p.m. the next day, I stood in the shade of the trees across from the Westgate Cafe, watching the people coming and going. I hadn't brought any money, but in my pocket were a voice recorder and pepper spray. At 2:58, a figure wearing a baseball cap and a mask appeared at the entrance of the cafe. Even though he was covered up tightly, I recognized him at a glance from the way he walked. Qin Mabe. I took a deep breath and walked over. I knew you'd come. He pulled down his mask, revealing that haggard face. The campus heartthrob, once so sunny and handsome, now had sunken eye sockets, a scraggly beard, and looked like a vagrant. Qin Mabai, have you lost your mind? I said coldly. Stalking me, blackmailing me, crazy. He suddenly grabbed my wrist. Yenyu, do you know how I've spent this past month? I scored 615 points. Now I can only repeat a year, and my parents, his voice choked up. I shook off his hand. You brought that on yourself. Who told you to believe Ian Xian's nonsense? You clearly knew the truth. His eyes were red. Why didn't you stop me? Why didn't you tell me? I did try to stop you. I lowered my voice. In my previous life, I did everything I could to stop you too. And what happened? You wrote a joint letter to get my application rejected. You bullied me online. You drove me to suicide. Qin Mabai froze. Why you? What are you talking about? I only then realized I'd let something slip, and hurriedly changed the subject. What exactly do you want? Money. He got straight to the point. 50,000, take it as compensation from you to me. I don't have any money. I turned to leave, and I'm warning you, if you keep harassing me, I'll call the police. Call the police. He let out a cold laugh and pulled a stack of papers from his pocket. See this? I've compiled evidence of your collusion with Ian Xian. If I spread this around, you can forget about ever showing your face at Zhongda again. I glanced at it, and it was all fabricated so-called evidence, claiming how I had joined forces with Ian Xian to deceive our classmates. Qin Mabai, I said word by word, go ahead and try. Let's see whether the police arrest you, you extortionist, first, or whether your lousy flyers destroy me first. After saying that, I turned and left. Behind me came Qin Mabai's hysterical shouting, Yenyu, just you wait, I won't let you get away with this. I didn't look back and walked straight to the school security office. In my previous life, I was too weak. In this life, I would take the initiative. After hearing my account, the teacher at the security office looked stern. Student, this is very serious. We will strengthen campus patrols, and we also recommend that you report this to the police. By the time I came out of the police station after giving my statement, it was already dark. The police said they would contact the H province police and warn Qin Mabai, but I knew that, with his current mindset, A warning probably wouldn't do much. Sure enough, early the next morning, Su-Wen rushed into the dormitory in a panic. Yen-Yu, hurry up and check the campus forum. I opened my computer, and a post titled, The Glorious History of Yen-Yu, new student at Sun Yat-sen University School of Medicine, had been pushed to the very top. It was full of so-called evidence fabricated by Qin Mabai, saying how I had teamed up with the class beauty to deceive our classmates, causing them to miss the deadline for submitting their college application preferences. There are already quite a few comments below the post. Seriously, someone like this can even get into CUHK. She looks pretty innocent, but I never expected her to be so vicious. I suggest the school investigate this and not let a bad apple slip in. My hands began to tremble, and the scene before my eyes overlapped with my past life, back then, on the forum at Shanghai Jiaotong University. It was also this kind of overwhelming torrent of abuse. Yen-Yu, is what this saying true? Su-Wen asked cautiously. Of course not. I forced myself to stay calm. It was my high school classmate who made a mistake himself, and now he wants to pin the blame on me. I immediately contacted my counselor and the university's Internet Information Office, and submitted all the evidence, including the video of Ian Xian admitting to the deception, my chat records with my classmates, and the evidence of Qin Mabai's extortion. The school's response was very efficient, and the post was deleted that same afternoon. At the same time, a pinned announcement appeared on the campus forum. Recently, an outsider has maliciously spread rumors and defamed students of our school. The school has already reported the matter to the police. Please do not believe or spread rumors. The storm temporarily subsided, but I knew Qin Mabai would not let this go. Sure enough, that night I received another text from him. Do you think deleting the post is the end of it? I've got more inside info waiting to be exposed, unless you transfer back to H province. I'll come stir up trouble at Zhongdai every day. I replied, Qin Mabai, I have already submitted evidence of your extortion and blackmail to the police. You are now suspected of a crime, so you'd better watch yourself. After sending this message, I shut my phone off. I've done everything I should. The rest is up to the law. However, I had underestimated Qin Mabai's level of madness. The morning 3 days later, just as I walked out of the dormitory building, I was stunned by the scene before me. The campus's main road was covered with flyers, printed with my photo and my crimes, and even my home address and my parents' workplaces. My God, who did this? The students passing by were all talking about it. I crouched down, trembling as I picked up a flyer. This was no longer just slander. They were trying to completely ruin my life. Just as I was at a loss for what to do, my phone rang. It was the police from Province H. Student Yen, we found Qin Mabai, but he is extremely unstable right now and is threatening to kill himself. He said he wants to see you one last time. I tightened my grip on the phone, and the image of my past self standing at the edge of the rooftop flashed through my mind. Even if Qin Mabai was guilty of unforgivable crimes, I still didn't want to see anyone repeat my mistake. Tell him. I took a deep breath. I'm coming back to see him right now. After hanging up the phone, I immediately asked my counselor for leave and bought the earliest flight back to H Province. 6. The rooftop of the teaching building at H Province No. 1 middle school was exactly the same as I remembered. I pushed open the rusted iron door and saw Qin Mabai sitting on the edge of the rooftop, his legs dangling in midair, his back thin as a sheet of paper. You're here. He didn't turn around. His voice was hoarse. I slowly walked closer and stopped 3 meters away from him. Qin Mabai, come down. It's dangerous up there. Dangerous, he suddenly laughed. Yen-Yu, weren't you reborn, in my previous life? I forced you to your death right here, didn't I? I froze all over. Why you? How do you know? Guessed it. He turned his head, his eyes red. Your behavior has been too abnormal these past few months, especially the slip of the tongue that day. I looked up a lot of information. Rebirth like this is absurd, but it seems to be the only explanation for your behavior. I remained silent, the wind lifting my hair and covering half my face. So, in my past life, I really drove you to your death. His voice trembled. I nodded. You all signed a joint letter to Shanghai Jiaotong University, and I was rejected. Then came the endless online abuse and harassment. In the end, I chose to jump. Qin Mabai's face turned deathly pale in an instant. God, what have I done? Talking about this now is meaningless, I said calmly. Qin Mabai, come down. You still have a long life ahead of you. Even if you repeat a year, you can still get into a good university. It's too late. He shook his head with a bitter smile. Yen-Yu, do you know, my parents got divorced because of me. my mom couldn't handle the shock and was hospitalized. My dad said the thing he regrets most in his life is having me as his son. My heart tightened. In my past life, before I killed myself, my parents were just as devastated. That's not a reason for you to sit there. I took a step forward. Chin Mabai, the mistake has already been made. What you need to do now is make amends, not run away, make up for it. He suddenly became agitated. How am I supposed to make up for it? Xian has already gone abroad, and the other classmates hate me to the bone. My parents, his voice broke with emotion. Yenyu, do you know, these past few days I've been thinking, if reincarnation is real, why wasn't I the one who was reborn? Why was it you? I froze. Yes, why was it me? If Chin Mabai had been the one reborn, maybe everything would have been different. Maybe it's because, I said softly, heaven wanted to give us a chance to reconcile. Chin Mabai stared at me in a daze, tears sliding down silently. Just then, the rooftop door was suddenly slammed open, and several police officers rushed in. Don't move, everyone back away. It turned out that when the school saw Chin Mabai go up to the rooftop, they immediately called the police. Chin Mabai, I shouted, come down, I forgive you. He looked at me, his expression complicated, and finally slowly climbed down from the edge of the rooftop. The police immediately stepped forward and restrained him. Yenyu, before being taken away, he looked back at me and said, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I nodded and said nothing more. Some wounds can't be healed by an apology alone, but at least, we all still had the chance to start over. After returning to Guangzhou, I received a notice from the police in H province. Chin Mabai was charged with extortion and defamation, but because he had surrendered himself and shown remorse, and his psychological evaluation revealed severe depression, he was ultimately sentenced to probation. As for the other high school classmates, I heard their results after repeating a year were not promising. A few of the ones who had followed Chin Mabai and caused the biggest scene even did worse than they did last year. As for Xian, I didn't go back on my word either. I compiled her videos and what she had done into materials and sent them to the University of Toronto admissions office. A month later, Lin Shiyu suddenly contacted me and said that Xian had been expelled from the University of Toronto for falsifying application materials and moral misconduct. It said her father spent a great deal of money just to keep her off the global university blacklist, but it's impossible for her to get into a top school again. Oh, by the way, do you remember Lu Ming? Lin Shiyu said over the phone. He was the first one to hand over the password to Xian. What's wrong? He pushed Chin Mabai down the stairs. Lin Shiyu's voice was trembling. Right there in the classroom of the repeat year class, he said it was all Chin Mabai's fault, that he'd lost his chance to get into a 985 university. I tightened my grip on the phone. Chin Mabai is dead. No, but there were multiple fractures all over his body. The doctor said he might be paralyzed for life. Lu Ming was sentenced to 10 years. And the other classmates involved were also convicted. After hanging up the phone, I could not calm down for a long time. This tragedy, caused by lies and deceit, ultimately ended in such a brutal way, and the instigator of all this, Xian, though stripped of the halo of her prestigious school, at least remained physically intact and still had plenty of life to waste. The world is just so unfair. Guangzhou in December was still as warm as spring. I sat in the library of Sun Yat-sen University, flipping through medical textbooks. Outside the window, the sun was bright, students came and went, and everyone's face was full of youthful vitality. Yenyu, I can't do this problem, teach me, will you? Su Wen leaned over and pushed her workbook in front of me. I smiled and took the workbook, then began explaining it to her. Here, no one knew about my past, and no one looked at me with strange eyes. At last, I could work toward my dreams like an ordinary person. The phone vibrated. It was a message from Mom. Yeah, today is your 20th birthday. Dad and Mom wish you a happy birthday. We are proud of you. I smiled and replied, thank you, Mom and Dad, I love you. I closed my phone and looked out at the blue sky beyond the window. Yenyu, who had once leaped from a building in despair in her previous life, had finally found a happy life of her own in this one. As for those who had hurt me, perhaps, as the saying goes, good and evil are bound to be repaid. The heavens have their own cycle. If you don't believe it, look up. When has the sky ever spared anyone? 7. At the start of the new semester after winter break, Sun Yat-sen University was brimming with vitality. I walked along the tree-lined path, carrying a heavy medical textbook, while sunlight filtered through the leaves and cast dappled shadows on the ground. Yenyu, Su Wen caught up from behind, panting as she handed me an envelope. your letter. It was mailed from Canada. My heart tightened as I took the envelope. The postmark indeed showed it was from Toronto, but there was no sender's name on the envelope. When I opened it, there was only a photograph inside, Ian Exian standing at the gate of the University of Toronto, raising her middle finger, a mocking smile on her face. On the back of the photo, there was a line that read, "You think you won, just wait and see." "Who is it?" Sue asked curiously, leaning over to look. "An old friend." I shoved the photo back into the envelope and forced a calm smile. Back in the dorm, I immediately took a photo of it and sent it to the officer in charge of my case with the H Province Police, since the Chin Mabai incident. The police had continued to keep an eye on me. "Ms. Yen, we will contact Interpol and have them pay attention to this situation," the officer replied quickly. "However, from the current situation, Ian Exian should just be bluffing. Her father's company has recently fallen into a financial crisis, and she herself has been expelled from the University of Toronto, so it's unlikely she can pose any real threat to you." I felt a little relieved, but I still created a new folder on my computer, specifically to store all the information related to Ian Exian. The lessons from my past life told me that I could never underestimate anyone's malice. In March, the school announced the list of incoming student scholarships. When I saw my name appear in the Special Prize Scholarship section, I could hardly believe my eyes. "Yen, you're amazing." Sue excitedly shook my shoulders. Only 3 freshmen in the whole school got the top distinction. I accepted my classmates' congratulations with a flushed face, but my heart was filled with mixed emotions. In my previous life, I should have been starting this kind of life at Shanghai Jiao Tong University, but that opportunity was cruelly taken from me, and in this life, I finally earned the honor I deserved through my own efforts. At the award ceremony, I gave a speech as the student representative. Standing under the spotlight and looking at the hundreds of unfamiliar faces below the stage, I suddenly felt as if I were in another world. "Thank you, Sun Yat-sen University, for giving me a chance to start over." My voice choked slightly. The most precious thing in life is not never falling down, but being able to stand up again every time we do. Warm applause broke out from the audience. After the ceremony, many classmates took the initiative to add me on WeChat, including Chen Hao, the president of the Medical School Student Union. "Yen, are you interested in joining the academic department of the student union?" He adjusted his glasses, his smile gentle. "We really need an overachiever like you." I gladly agreed. This was exactly a good opportunity to fully immerse myself in my new life. One weekend in April, I was working on a paper in the library when my phone suddenly vibrated. It was an unfamiliar number from H Province. "Hello." I hesitated for a moment, but still answered. "Yen." A weak voice came from the other end of the phone. "It's me, Chin Mabai." My hand trembled, and the pen fell to the floor. Since the last time we parted on the rooftop, we hadn't been in contact for more than half a year. Are you okay?" I asked softly, hurrying out of the reading room. "Not too bad," he said with a bitter smile. "I can barely sit in a wheelchair. The doctor said I'll never be able to stand in my life, but at least I still have my hands." I leaned against the wall in the hallway, my chest tight. Although Chin Mabai had done so many evil things to me in my previous life, hearing about his current condition still filled me with a wave of sadness. "Lu Ming and the others, have they been sentenced?" I asked quietly. 10 years, others got 3 to 5 years. Chin Mabai's voice was filled with remorse. "Yen, I've thought a lot during this time. If I hadn't followed Ian Exian so blindly back then, if I could have stayed clear-headed like you." "It's all in the past," I interrupted him. "What are your plans now?" "I'm teaching myself programming, although my college dream has been shattered. At least I can still be a useful person." He suddenly choked up. "Yen, I made this call because I wanted to tell you in person. I'm sorry, I'm truly sorry." I closed my eyes and let the tears fall. I had waited 2 lifetimes for this apology. "I forgive you," I said softly. "Chin Mabai, live well." After hanging up, I sat on the bench in the corridor for a long time. Sunlight streamed through the glass window and warmed my body. At that moment, I felt as if something heavy had finally been lifted from my heart. One day in May, Sue mysteriously pulled me over to the dorm computer. "Look, that high school classmate of yours is in the news." On the screen was an international news report. Chinese international student suspected of academic fraud deported from Canada. The accompanying photo showed Ian Exian being taken away at the airport. She had her head down, with none of her former arrogance left. According to reports, this international student had previously been expelled from the University of Toronto for character issues, and is now suspected of forging materials to apply to other schools. Soo-won read the news aloud. Wow, this is way too explosive. I quietly closed the webpage without saying anything. In my past life, Een Exayan went abroad in glory, while I took my own life in resentment. In this life, our fates have been completely reversed. Perhaps this is what people mean by retribution. After the final exams ended, the student union organized an outing. We went to an ecological farm on the outskirts of Guangzhou, where we barbecued and sang under the starry sky. Yenyu, try the chicken wings I grilled. Chen Hao handed me a skewer of wings, fragrant and slightly charred, with an expectant look on his face. Thank you. I took the chicken wing, accidentally brushing against his fingers, and we both smiled a little awkwardly. Next semester, we can take part in the medical competition together. He pushed up his glasses, his voice gentle. I think we'd make a very good team. I nodded, and a sweet flutter stirred in my heart. Since my rebirth, I had kept myself shut off, afraid of getting hurt again, but now, perhaps it was time to open my heart. On the bus back to school, Soo-won fell asleep against my shoulder. I gazed at the night scenery flashing rapidly backward outside the window, and suddenly remembered my final thought before taking my own life in my previous life. If I could do it all over again, now, I've truly started over, and this time, I seized every chance to rewrite my fate. When I came home for summer break, my parents had made a whole table of dishes I loved. At the dinner table, Dad happily told me he'd been promoted. Mom excitedly talked about taking the whole family on a trip during winter break. Our Yaya is really so promising, Mom said proudly, a top scholarship, a student council officer. And next semester you're even going to compete in a national competition. I smiled and served them some food, my heart full of warmth. In my previous life, when I chose to end my life, the people I felt most sorry for were them. In this life, I want to make it up to them with double the love. Before going to bed, I turned on my computer to check my email. There was a notice from the police in H province. After Een Exayan was deported back to the country, she was criminally detained on suspicion of multiple fraud cases. Meanwhile, Chin Mabe developed an app to help people with disabilities, which drew attention and support from all walks of society. I closed the computer and walked to the window. The night sky was dotted with stars, and tomorrow would be another bright, sunny day. 8. On the first day of sophomore year, I was wearing a brand new white lab coat, standing in front of the mirror in the medical school laboratory building, carefully straightening my collar. Dr. Yen, looking quite handsome, Soo-won suddenly appeared from behind and playfully tugged at my sleeve. Cut it out. I swatted her hand away, but I couldn't help the corners of my mouth lifting. After a year of hard work, I had finally officially entered the core course stage of the medical program. In anatomy class, the professor pointed at the specimen and explained the structure of the human body in detail. I was fully focused on taking notes, and occasionally looked up, only to find Chen Hao smiling at me from across several desks. Since the last outing, our relationship had grown closer and closer, though neither of us had yet broken that unspoken barrier. Today's after-class assignment is to work in groups on a short paper about the nervous system, the professor announced before class ended. 2 people per group, free pairing. The classmates immediately began looking for partners. I was still hesitating over whether I should take the initiative to find Chen Hao when he had already walked up to me. Classmate Yenyu, would you be willing to team up with me? He pushed up his glasses, the tips of his ears slightly red. Sure, I nodded with a smile. See you at the library. The library in the evening was quiet and cozy. Chen Hao and I sat side by the window, thick medical materials spread out before us. Look here, he suddenly pointed to a passage. The transmission mechanism of neural synapses is very similar to that case you studied before. I leaned over to look and accidentally brushed his shoulder. We both froze for a moment, then smiled at each other. Sunlight streamed through the glass window onto the side of his face, outlining a gentle contour. Yenyu, Chen Hao was just about to say something when my phone suddenly vibrated. Sorry, I glanced at the screen. It was an unfamiliar number. I'll take this. May I ask if this is Yenyu? The voice on the other end was an unfamiliar woman's voice. I'm the head nurse at H City First Hospital. Mr. Chin Mabai is currently in our hospital, and he hopes to see you. I tightened my grip on the phone. What's wrong with him? His condition suddenly worsened. The doctor said he might not last much longer. After hanging up the phone, my hands trembled uncontrollably. Although Chin Mabai had done so many wrong things to me in my past life, after that rooftop conversation, I had already forgiven him. Besides, in this life, He truly had been trying his best to make up for his mistakes. What happened? Chen Hao asked with concern. I briefly explained the situation. Chen Hao thought for a moment, then suddenly closed his book. I'll go with you. Tomorrow happens to be class-free anyway, so we can take tonight's high-speed rail. I looked at him in surprise. But our thesis, compared to grades, human life is more important, he said firmly. Besides, as medical students, isn't this exactly what we should be doing? Warmth spread through my heart, and I nodded. At 10 that night, we arrived at H City First Hospital. Qin Mabai lay in the intensive care unit, tubes inserted all over his body, looking even thinner and more haggard than he had 6 months ago. Yen, you, seeing me, he forced out a smile, his voice so faint it was almost inaudible. The nurse told us that Qin Mabai had entered the final stage of life due to multiple organ failure caused by long-term bed rest, compounded by liver damage from antidepressant medication. He's actually done a lot of good things these past 6 months, the nurse said softly. That app that helps people with disabilities has already benefited thousands of people. I walked to the bedside and gently held Qin Mabai's hand. That hand, which had once written countless excellent exam papers, was now skin and bones, covered with needle marks. Developed a new feature, he said haltingly, to help patients with depression. I hope no one else, like us. Tears burst from my eyes. In my past life, and him in this life, we were both victims destroyed by depression. Qin Mabai, your app will help a lot of people, I said, choking up. I promise. He gave a slight nod, then turned his gaze to Chen Hao. This is my classmate, Chen Hao, I introduced, from the medical school. Me, medical student. Qin Mabai's eyes suddenly lit up for a moment. So nice. Save the dying, heal the wounded. That night, Chen Hao and I stayed outside the ward. At 3 in the morning, the monitor's piercing alarms suddenly sounded. Doctors and nurses rushed into the ward, but it was already beyond saving. Qin Mabai, my childhood friend, the murderer who killed me in my past life, the patient who tried hard to atone in this life, just quietly passed away from this world. His funeral was simple, with most attendees being app beneficiaries and some social workers. To my surprise, Lin Shiyu and a few high school classmates also came. Yenyu, Lin Shiyu walked up to me with red eyes. Actually, Qin Mabai often contacted us over the past 6 months, urging us to let go of the past and live well. I looked at Qin Mabai's funeral portrait. In the photo, he sat in a wheelchair with a peaceful smile. This was a far cry from his confident and spirited appearance in high school, yet it felt more real than ever before. On the high-speed train back to Guangzhou, I remained silent the entire time. Chen Hao thoughtfully didn't disturb me, only occasionally handing me a bottle of water or a pack of tissues. Chen Hao, as we were about to arrive at the station, I suddenly spoke up. Why do you want to study medicine? He thought for a moment, then said earnestly, because when my grandmother was sick, she met a particularly good doctor. At that time, I thought, how wonderful it would be if I could become someone like that. I gazed at the scenery rushing past outside the window and whispered, Qin Moba is right, saving lives and healing the wounded. It's truly wonderful. Chen Hao gently took my hand. This time, I didn't pull away. In the second semester of my sophomore year, Chen Hao and I officially became a couple. We studied together, competed together, and interned together at the hospital. With his encouragement, I also joined the school's mental health volunteer team, where I specialized in helping students with depressive tendencies. Do you know, you look especially gentle when you comfort people. After one volunteer activity, Chen Hao said that about me. I smiled and didn't tell him that this gentleness came from the painful insight gained across 2 lifetimes. During my summer internship, I was in charge of the pediatric ward. One day, a nurse led a little girl in a wheelchair into the consultation room. Doctor, can I become a doctor like you in the future? The little girl asked innocently, looking up at me. I crouched down and looked her in the eyes. Of course you can. You know what? Sister knows someone who, although he can't walk, developed a great app that helped a lot of people. Watching the little girl's eyes sparkle, I suddenly understood Qin Mabai's final wish. Harm cannot be erased, but kindness can be passed on. Perhaps that is the meaning of rebirth. During my junior year, the medical student mental health mutual support platform that Chen Hao and I developed won the Gold Award in the National College Student Entrepreneurship Competition. On the podium, a reporter asked me where the idea came from. This idea came from a friend, I said into the microphone. He taught me that even in darkness, we should strive to be someone else's light. Chen Hao, seated below, gave me a thumbs up. I knew he understood who I was talking about. After graduation, Chen-Hao and I were both recommended to pursue graduate studies at our alma mater, continuing our education. The platform we developed together has already been promoted and used at many medical schools across the country, helping countless medical students. Occasionally, late at night when everything is quiet, I still think back to everything from my past life, but those memories no longer torment me. Instead, they have become a warning bell reminding me to cherish the present. Dr. Yen, there's been a change in the condition of the patient in bed 3. The nurse's call pulled me back from my thoughts. I straightened my white coat and quickened my pace toward the ward. Sunlight streamed through the corridor windows, illuminating the medical student oath on the wall. Health is entrusted to us, life is in our care. In this life, I had finally become the person I once dreamed of being, and all those past entanglements of love and hatred had turned into one guiding light after another on the road of medicine, leading me ever onward. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My stepsister's favorite idol was the top scorer in the city's college entrance exam. To get close to her idol, my stepsister tricked our parents out of a lot of money, claiming it was for tutoring. 1 month before the college entrance exam, my stepsister got her wish and hugged her idol for a photo. My stepsister was so obsessed that she felt the scent and exam luck of her idol were surrounding her. She decided not to take a bath for a month, waiting until after the college entrance exam to wash up. She had lice all over her body, and her hair was greasy and smelly. I couldn't stand it anymore sitting behind her, so after going home, I forced her to take a bath. As a result, she failed the college entrance exam, scoring only 338 points, while I scored 668. She was furious, pulled out a pile of smelly socks from under the bed, and stuffed them into my mouth, almost suffocating me. It's all your fault, otherwise, I could have been the top scorer in the city, just like my idol. Having lived a second life, I don't care whether she bathes or not, I just want to see if she can become the top scholar. I died on a sunny afternoon in June, to be precise. I was suffocated to death by my half-sister Helen, who stuffed her month-old stinky socks into my mouth. It's all your fault, otherwise, I could have become the city's top scholar like my idol. Helen's hysterical scream still echoed in my ears, her greasy, tangled hair, the grime under her fingernails, and the stench of sweat, grease, and cheap perfume on her body were all deeply etched into my soul along with the agony of suffocation. I suddenly opened my eyes and found myself standing outside the bedroom door of my stepmother Linda and my father Bob, clutching a crumpled report card in my hand. 668 points, the score from my college entrance exam in my previous life. Helen's mock exam scores have dropped again, only 350 points. How is she going to get into a good university at this rate? Linda's deliberately lowered voice slipped through the crack in the door. Maybe we could use Sarah's college tuition to pay for Helen's tutoring classes first. My father's words sent a chill down my spine. After all, Sarah has good grades and can apply for student loans. I looked down at the date on my phone, May 8, 2023, exactly 1 month before the college entrance exam. I had been reborn, back to where the tragedy began. Memories flooded in like a tide. In my past life, I was admitted to a top university with a score ranking in the top 50 of the city, while Helen only scored 338. She attributed her failure in the college entrance exam to me forcing her to take a shower before the exam, which she believed washed away the exam luck she had supposedly absorbed from her so-called academic idol. Sarah, what are you standing there for? Linda suddenly pulled the door open, her hand, painted with crimson nail polish, nearly poking me in the eye. I instinctively took a step back, the fear and anger accumulated from my past life churning in my chest, but I quickly calmed down. In this life, I would not repeat the same mistakes. Mom, Dad, I forced a well-behaved smile. I just got my second mock exam results and wanted to tell you. Linda snatched the report card, glanced at it, and threw it back in my face. 668 points. What are you showing off for? You'd be better off spending that time tutoring your sister. Bob didn't even look at it, just kept flipping through his phone contacts. Let me ask around and see if I can find a reliable tutor. I silently picked up the report card, catching a glimpse of Helen's door out of the corner of my eye, covered in posters of her idol, Edward, a young star who rose to fame by marketing himself as a top student and was last year's top scorer in a certain city's college entrance exam. Sis, Helen suddenly pulled the door open. She was wearing a t-shirt with Edward's face on it, her hair so greasy it shone. Look, I managed to snag a VIP ticket to Edward's fan meet and greet. she waved a golden ticket that shimmered, printed with the words, "Special benefit, hug and photo." I squinted and noticed the price, 5,000 yuan. "Where did you get the money?" I asked softly, already knowing the answer in my heart. "Mom and Dad gave it to me," Helen spun around proudly. "Brother Edward didn't take a shower for a whole month before the college entrance exam last year, and that's how he became the top scorer. I want to do the same and soak up some of that academic genius aura." My stomach churned. In my past life, I had strongly opposed this absurd behavior, only to be accused by the whole family of being jealous of my sister. After a heated argument, I dragged Helen to take a shower, and from then on, I became the scapegoat for her failure in the college entrance exam. "That's great," I heard myself say calmly. "I wish you success." Helen froze, clearly not expecting me to support her. Linda also cast a skeptical glance my way, but I just smiled, turned around, and went back to my room. Closing the door, I immediately took an old notebook from the hidden compartment of my school bag, opened it to a fresh page, and neatly wrote down today's date along with the number, 5,000 yuan. In my past life, I was too naive, thinking that studying hard and being obedient would earn my family's love. In this life, I'm going to watch Helen rush headlong down the path of self-destruction while collecting every piece of evidence I can to protect myself. I gently stroked the notebook, the only keepsake my mother left me before she passed away. I remember in my past life, Helen sold it for 50 cents as scrap paper without permission, just to buy her idol's merchandise. Outside the window came Helen's shrill laughter. "Mom, Brother Edward is coming to town next month for a concert. I want to buy front row tickets." "Buy them." Bob's voice was resolute. "As long as you study hard," I sneered coldly, pulling out the second-hand phone I had secretly bought from under the bed, and turned on the recording function. "In this life, I will watch as this family is slowly dragged into the abyss by a fleeting idol and a spoiled, overgrown child, and I, Sarah, will step over their corpses to walk towards the bright future that belongs to me." "Sis, look at my hug voucher," Helen's shrill voice pierced my eardrums. She rushed into the kitchen waving a gold-embossed card, nearly knocking over the instant noodles I was cooking. Edward's overly retouched face on the card reflected under the LED lights, with the words, "Special perk, 30-second hug plus photo," printed next to it. It cost 5,000 yuan. Helen shoved the card in front of my face, her nails still stained with the chipped black nail polish from yesterday. "Brother Edward only released 50 of these, and I managed to grab the last one." I stared at the steam rising from the instant noodles, trying hard to control my facial muscles. "Congratulations. Did your parents give you the money?" "Of course." Helen carefully placed the hug voucher into a transparent card sleeve printed with a chibi version of Edward, hanging it on her already heavy idol fan keychain. "Mom said this is an investment in my future." My throat tightened. In my past life, at this very moment, I had been punished by Linda to wash dishes for a week because I opposed her spending so much money on chasing idols, but now, I just said softly, "That's really nice." Helen tilted her head and looked at me, her greasy bangs sticking to her forehead. "Sis, why are you acting so strange today?" "She knows she's in the wrong." Linda swayed her hips as she walked in, the scent of cheap perfume mingling with the sweat on Helen's body, making my stomach churn. She walked right past me, scooped up the instant noodles I had just cooked from the pot, and handed them to Helen. "Eat up, and then go do your homework. Your sister will help you organize that, whatever notes later." Voting notes. Helen sprayed food crumbs as she spoke. "Brother Edward is entering the Most Beautiful Academic Star competition next month, and our fan club needs to boost his stats." I silently boiled water again, watching Linda smooth Helen's hair, and remembered the day in my past life when I discovered my tuition had been misused, how I had run to 3 student loan offices in a downpour, looking utterly pathetic. "Oh, by the way," Linda suddenly turned to me, "Teacher Wang called and said the school needs 200 yuan for materials. I told him we're tight on money lately, so you'll have to figure it out yourself." I clenched my chopsticks tightly. That money was paid last week, covered by my breakfast allowance. Now I understand. That money probably became part of Helen's hug vouchers too. "Okay, Mom," I nodded obediently, watching Helen push her leftover instant noodles aside and start daydreaming over Edward's poster. Back in my room, I immediately pulled out the old notebook from the hidden compartment of my backpack. On a new page, I wrote, 5,000 yuan, hug vouchers, then took a photo to archive it. Opening my phone's cloud album, I created a new encrypted album titled Evidence and uploaded today's photo of Helen showing off the hug vouchers. My phone vibrated. A message from my homeroom teacher, Ms. Wang. Sarah, your mom said you're applying for a student loan. I quickly replied, Teacher, I suspect my family won't be able to cover my university tuition. Could you help me learn about scholarship and student loan policies? After sending the message, I also took a screenshot of the chat history. In my past life, I was too concerned about saving face and never dared to tell outsiders about my family's troubles, which almost cost me the chance to attend university. Sis, Helen suddenly kicked my door open, startling me so much that I nearly dropped my phone. I've decided, starting today, I'm going to follow Edward's pre-college entrance exam routine. No showering for a month. I looked up and saw her holding up her phone, the screen displaying a marketing article. Top student idol Edward's college entrance exam secret. Not showering can keep your exam luck. Helen is so smart. Linda's voice came from the living room. The top scholar's method must work. Bob chimed in, right, this is called resonating with the academic elite. I clenched my teeth. In my past life, it was at this moment that I pointed to the entertainment gossip tag under that article and said it was clearly a publicity stunt. As a result, the whole family ganged up on me, accusing me of not wanting my sister to succeed. That's great, I heard myself say. I wish you success. Helen narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Do you really think it's good? Of course. I even managed to force a smile. Your happiness is what matters most. She froze for a few seconds, then suddenly lunged forward to hug me. I instinctively dodged. The smell of sweat, oil, and expired body lotion on her was already starting to become noticeable. TCH, you don't know what's good for you, Helen pouted. Tonight, you have to help me organize the fan voting notes until 2 a.m. Our fan club needs to catch up on the data. At 1:45 a.m., I rubbed my sore, swollen eyes and helped Helen finish the last brainwashing document for Edward's study moments. She had long since fallen asleep on her Edward body pillow, drool dripping onto her idol's face. I tiptoed back to my room, pulled a pack of wet wipes from the depths of a drawer, and vigorously wiped the oil from my face and hands. Helen insisted on eating fried chicken and applying hand cream while organizing her notes, leaving her hands greasy. Early the next morning, I was jolted awake by the piercing sound of my alarm. 5:30 a.m., the time I had set for morning reading. In the mirror, dark circles hung under my eyes. So loud, Helen's shriek came from the next room. I'm still sleeping. I quickly turned off the alarm, but I still heard Linda's footsteps. Sarah, she pushed the door open abruptly. Can't you be more considerate of your sister? She studied so late last night. I opened my mouth but ended up saying nothing. In my past life, I had tried to explain that I was helping Helen with her celebrity fan materials until late, only to be met with the response, it's only natural for an older sister to help her younger sister. While washing up, I noticed Helen's toothbrush was dry. She clearly hadn't even brushed her teeth. A sticky note was stuck to the mirror. The shower gel is hidden. Don't even think about sneaking a shower, Helen, I sneered, washed my face with cold water, and headed out. The morning air was exceptionally fresh. At least here, I didn't have to breathe in Helen's gradually fermenting body odor. Sarah. Just as I stepped out of the residential complex, I was called to a stop. It was Aunt Zhao from Unit 502 downstairs. She wrinkled her nose and leaned closer to me. Is there something spoiled in your home? I've been smelling a strange odor these past couple of days. I understood immediately. It's Helen. She's decided not to shower for a month, saying it'll bring her luck for the exams. What? Aunt Zhao's eyes widened. Who still believes in that kind of thing these days? I feigned helplessness and sighed. Both my parents support her, so there's nothing I can do. What a sin. Aunt Zhao shook her head. Your mother used to be such a clean person. She suddenly fell silent, realizing she had said the wrong thing. I forced a smile. Aunt Zhao, if the smell gets too strong, you can talk directly to my stepmother. Forget it, forget it. Aunt Zhao waved her hand. That stepmother of yours, sigh, you've had it rough. I turned and walked toward the school, the corners of my mouth lifting involuntarily. Another witness, another bargaining chip. When I got home from school, I was hit by a wave of foul odor as soon as I pushed the door open. Helen was sprawled on the sofa, wearing the same pajamas she hadn't changed in 3 days, with snack bags and Edward merchandise piled around her feet. Her hair was so greasy it had clumped into strands, shimmering with an eerie sheen under the overhead light. Sis, she waved excitedly at me, the sweat stains under her arms clearly visible. I discovered today that not showering really works. I'm solving problems so smoothly. I held my breath, placing my backpack on the chair farthest from her. Congratulations. Right. Helen jumped up, her scent pressing over me like a wall. Brother Edward says this is called original exam luck. So many people in our fan group are trying it. I fought back the urge to gag, noticing a brand new copy of 5-3 College Entrance Exam Simulation on the coffee table. The cover was still sealed, with a layer of potato chip crumbs scattered on top. Sarah, Linda called out from the kitchen, go make dinner, your sister is hungry. I put down my backpack and headed to the kitchen, hearing Helen shout from behind, sis, I want fried chicken. Brother Edward loves fried chicken the most. In the kitchen, as I looked at the only 2 eggs and half a wilted cabbage left in the refrigerator, I suddenly remembered that in my past life, on this very day, I had been scolded by Bob as selfish for secretly boiling an egg for myself. Mom, I asked calmly, has all the money been spent? Linda, who was painting her nails, paused for a moment. What do you mean? Nothing, I said, taking out the cabbage and starting to wash it. Just wanted to ask if I should go to the supermarket to buy some groceries. No need, she snapped. Your dad will bring money back tonight. Then she lowered her voice. Don't talk about these things in front of your sister. It'll affect her mood for studying. I nodded, silently adding another note to my mental ledger. Helen's study mood was more important than the whole family's basic needs. What a touching display of maternal love. During dinner, Bob indeed brought back a bag of braised snacks. Helen cheered and rushed over, grabbing a duck neck with her greasy hands and immediately taking a bite. Eat slowly, Bob said with a doting smile, but when he turned to look at me, the smile vanished instantly. Sarah, I heard you upset your sister again this morning. I poked at the white rice in my bowl. The alarm clock woke her up. Can't you just not use an alarm clock? Bob frowned. Helen is at a critical stage and needs plenty of sleep. I looked up and saw Helen flipping through Edward's photo album with her greasy fingers, leaving fingerprints all over her idol's face. All right, I said softly, I won't use an alarm clock anymore. Bob nodded with satisfaction and placed a duck leg on Helen's plate. Helen, Dad bought you new blue light blocking glasses. They'll arrive tomorrow. I want the same style as Edward's. Helen mumbled with her mouth full of food. The one that costs $2,800. Buy it, Bob replied without hesitation. I lowered my head and continued eating, mentally adding another note in my little book. Blue light blocking glasses, 2,800 yuan. At night, lying in bed, I listened to Helen's shrill laughter as she sent voice messages in her fan group next door. Silently putting in my earplugs, on the 3rd day of my rebirth, I had already gathered enough evidence, but it was still far from sufficient. I wanted to see how this family, the treasure they held in their hands, would be dragged into the abyss bit by bit. Sarah, help me grab my backpack. On Saturday morning, Helen's scream pierced through the door, rubbing my temples. I lifted my head from the sea of exam questions. She had already thrown her backpack at my door and rushed into the bathroom. Though she didn't shower, she spent 2 hours in there every day voting for Edward's fan club. I bent down to pick up the heavy backpack. The zipper wasn't fully closed, and its contents spilled out all over the floor. Several brand new copies of 5 years of college entrance exams, 3 years of simulated tests, still in their plastic wrap, were buried under a pile of colorful Edward merchandise. My eyes were drawn to a gilded envelope. The flap was slightly open, revealing a letterhead inside that read, Edward Global Fan Club. I glanced warily toward the bathroom. The sound of running water was still going, and quickly pulled the envelope out. The words, exclusive meet and greet invitation, immediately caught my eye. I quickly scanned the contents, my fingers unconsciously tightening. It was an admission ticket to a Supreme VIP private meet and greet, priced at 18,888 yuan, scheduled for the 3rd day after the college entrance exams. What are you doing? Helen's scream startled me, causing my hand to tremble, and the envelope fell to the ground. She rushed over, the smell of sweat, grease, and cheap perfume emanating from her body pressing down on me like a wall. Picking up what you dropped, I said calmly, pointing to the scattered items on the floor. Helen snatched the envelope, her eyes wide beneath her greasy bangs. Did you look? I didn't see clearly, I said, lowering my head to help her gather her other things, my heart racing. Next to that envelope, I found a receipt, a ring identical to Edward's, 9,999 yuan. Did your parents buy all these for you? I pointed at the pile of merchandise on the floor. Helen proudly lifted her chin. Of course. Edward's birthday is next week, and the fan club is buying him a star naming right. I donated 5,000. I forced down the churning in my stomach and helped her pick up the last photo book. The pages automatically flipped open to the autograph page, where a gold marker read, "To my dearest Helen." Brother Edward signed it for me himself. Helen snatched it back, clutching it to her chest. Once I finish the college entrance exams, I can go to his private party. Looking at her greasy, tangled hair and the yellowed collar of her pajamas, I suddenly remembered seeing someone at the flea market last week selling a used tissue of Edward's for 3,000 yuan. The madness of fan culture was beyond my imagination. "Sis, what do you want for your birthday next month?" Helen suddenly asked, her eyes still fixed on the photo book. I was stunned. In my previous life, until my death, I hadn't received a birthday gift for 5 years. "No need," I said softly, "I was just asking casually." Helen pouted. "Anyway, Mom and Dad said all the money this year has to be spent on my college entrance exam." I quietly noted this information and returned to my room to continue studying. The calendar on the desk showed there were 25 days left until the college entrance exam, and my evidence bank already had over 30 entries. In the afternoon, I made an excuse to go to the library but actually went to an internet cafe. In a secluded corner, I logged into my alternate account and searched for Edward private meetup. The search results made my fingers go cold. Multiple accounts of former fans who had turned against him revealed that these private meetups were actually gray area transactions between the idol and fans, with prices ranging from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands, including services like private companionship and special services. Although it was hard to tell what was true, Helen's 18,888 yuan ticket was clearly not for an ordinary fan event. "Sarah, a voice suddenly came from behind me, and I quickly closed the web page and turned around. It was Lu Shiyu, a student from the same school, her eyes red and swollen, clutching a pack of tissues in her hand. "You're here to see the star too?" she asked between sobs. I shook my head. "Research." Glancing at the fan banner in her hand, I tentatively asked, "Are you a fan of Edward?" Lu Shiyu suddenly broke down crying. "I just got kicked out of the fan club, just because I didn't have money to contribute to the birthday fundraiser." I handed her a tissue and guided her to the rest area to sit down. Half an hour later, I managed to extract some shocking information from this obsessive fan. Helen was a core member of Edward's fan group, known online as Rui Bao's little wife, and was famous for spending money on her idol without hesitation. She even posted her private chat logs with her brother in the group. Lu Shiyu said with a hint of jealousy, saying that her brother promised to give her a special reward after the college entrance exam. A sharp pain twisted in my stomach. In my past life, Helen did indeed disappear for 3 days after the college entrance exam. When she returned, there were suspicious red marks on her neck, and at the time, the whole family thought she had gone out to have fun with her classmates. "Do you know the specific details of that private meet and greet?" I asked cautiously. Lu Shiyu's eyes flickered. "Anyway, it's not something an ordinary fan could imagine." She lowered her voice. "Helen said her parents agreed to sell their house to support her in chasing her idol. Everyone in the group calls her Little Rich Girl." Stepping out of the internet cafe, the June sunlight stung my eyes. Helen wants to sell the house to chase after celebrities. Although that 2-bedroom apartment is old, it's the only property my biological mother left behind. On the way home, I passed by a real estate agency. The window displayed the housing prices for our neighborhood, starting at 40,000 yuan per square meter. Based on our 80 square meter apartment, I tightened my grip on my phone. That over 3 million yuan from selling the house would be more than enough for Helen to splurge for quite some time. During dinner, I deliberately brought it up in front of Bob. "Dad, our homeroom teacher said the university tuition fees need to be paid by the end of July at the latest." Bang! Bob slammed his bowl onto the table, sending porcelain shards flying. One piece grazed my cheek. "Can't even have a meal in peace." The veins on his forehead bulged. "It's always money, money, money. Don't you know what the family situation is like right now?" I covered my stinging cheek, catching a glimpse of Helen using her greasy hands to send a message in Edward's fan group, a smile playing at the corner of her mouth. "Bob," Linda scolded her husband with a light push, then turned to me and narrowed her eyes. "Sarah, you know Helen is at a critical stage right now. The family's money has to be prioritized for her use." "I understand." I lowered my head and shoveled rice into my mouth, secretly pressing the record button on my phone hidden under the table. "Good that you understand," Bob snorted coldly. "Figure out your tuition fees yourself. Anyway, with your good grades, you can apply for a student loan." Linda added, "By the way, your Aunt Lucy's restaurant is hiring servers. $15 an hour, you can go on weekends. I looked up at Helen. She was grinning foolishly at her phone screen, with a $298 imported steak that Bob had just bought for her sitting in front of her. Okay, I replied softly, a metallic taste of blood rising in my mouth. I had unknowingly bitten the inside of my cheek. At night, lying in bed, I replayed the recording, and Bob's words, "Figure out your tuition on your own," were clearly audible. I opened the encrypted photo album and added the pictures I took today, Helen's meet and greet invitation, the receipt for the merchandise, and the scabbed wound on my face. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a message from my homeroom teacher, Mr. Wang, with the results of the second mock exam. My name was ranked 7th in the grade, while Helen had already dropped to the bottom 20. I deliberately printed out the report card and left it on the coffee table. When Bob came home and saw it, he immediately rushed into Helen's room to comfort her. "Helen, don't be discouraged. The questions were difficult this time, Dad," Helen said tearfully. "Several students in my class improved, but I fell behind. That's because they cheated," Linda said firmly. My Helen is the most honest. Standing in the shadows of the hallway, I listened to this farce, and the corners of my mouth unconsciously lifted. In my past life, I had been punished with no dinner because of Helen's declining grades. Now, watching them deceive themselves, I could only find it laughable. "Sis." Helen suddenly opened the door, her eyes red. "Why won't you help me with my studies?" I looked at her oily, shiny forehead and the yellow stains on her collar, and calmly said, "You're too busy chasing after celebrities. When do you have time to study?" "Sarah," Linda scolded sharply, "how dare you speak to your sister like that?" "I'm sorry." I immediately lowered my head. After being reborn, I learned to feign obedience on the surface. "I'll start helping Helen with her studies tomorrow." Helen snorted. "No need." Brother Edward said that the college entrance exam tests luck, not ability. "I've already found the secret to becoming the top scorer." She slammed the door shut, and I heard the sound of a video call from inside. "Brother Edward, I'm so sad today." Back in my room, I opened my notebook and wrote on the latest page, June 10th, Helen mentioned the secret to becoming the top scorer, suspecting there may be more crazy plans. After writing this line, I opened the window and took a deep breath. The night sky was dotted with stars. Could one of them have been bought by Helen and gifted to her, Brother Edward? The next day was Sunday, and I went to work at Aunt Lucy's restaurant as Linda had requested. After standing for 10 hours, my feet were so swollen that I couldn't even fit them into my shoes, and when I dragged my exhausted body home, Helen was excitedly showing her parents her newly bought, Edward-style, watch. Priced at 16,888 yuan on the official website. "Helen is amazing," Linda patted her head. "Wearing this watch will definitely help you get good grades." Bob also nodded repeatedly. The money was well spent. I quietly returned to my room and pulled out my piggy bank from under the bed. Inside was the breakfast money I had secretly saved over the past 6 months, totaling 687.5 yuan. It was still far from enough for my university tuition, but at least it was a start. Late at night, I logged into my long-unused QQ account and found the contact information from my biological mother's cousin. After much hesitation, I sent a message. "Auntie, this is Sarah. Do you still remember me?" After sending the message, I curled up in bed, staring at the light seeping from under Helen's door. Inside, I could hear her silly laughter and the background music of Edward's new song. I clutched my phone tightly, which held the video I had recorded earlier that day. Helen proudly showing off her watch and saying, "My parents gave me all the money they saved for my sister's college education." The evidence was slowly accumulating, just like the hatred growing silently within me. "Helen, please come out for a moment." During Wednesday morning's chemistry class, the homeroom teacher, Ms. Wang, stopped her lecture for the 3rd time, frowning as she looked toward the back of the classroom. The entire class held their breath in unison. The smell emanating from Helen had become so strong that even the students in the front row could no longer bear it. "What?" Helen reluctantly stood up, her greasy, matted hair clinging to her forehead, and the collar of her school uniform stained with a suspicious yellowish tint. Ms. Wang suppressed her discomfort. "The principal's office wants to see you. Also," she paused, "your parents will be at the school in 10 minutes. Helen shook her hair carelessly, sending a few flakes of dandruff drifting onto the desks of the students in the front row, eliciting a wave of gagging sounds. She swaggered out of the classroom, leaving behind a lingering trail of sweat, grease, and the scent of expired perfume. Finally, my deskmate Chen Shui leaned over and whispered, "If I had to hold it in any longer, I would have thrown up." I lowered my head, pretending to take notes, but in my mind, I was counting how many times this week I had been called to the principal's office because of Helen's hygiene issues. The day before yesterday, it was because her classmates refused to team up with her in PE class. Yesterday, it was the cafeteria lady gently suggesting she pay attention to personal hygiene. As the class bell rang, my phone started vibrating. It was Linda calling repeatedly. I took a deep breath and answered. Sarah, her sharp voice pierced through my eardrum. Come to the principal's office right now. I gripped my phone tightly. Mom, I still have class. Stop making excuses, she practically roared. Your sister is being bullied. In the principal's office, Helen was sobbing and sniffling, the smell emanating from her forcing the principal to open all the windows. Teacher Wang stood nearby, his face ashen. Linda, the principal wiped the sweat from his forehead. We fully understand students' personal habits, but Helen's situation has seriously affected the other students. What personal habit? Linda interrupted him, her crimson nails almost poking the principal in the face. My Helen is learning the study methods of a top scorer. Teacher Wang couldn't help but interject. Linda, not bathing for a month really isn't a study method. What do you know? Linda raised her voice. Edward did exactly this before the college entrance exam last year, and he ended up being the city's top scorer. The principal's expression looked as if he had swallowed a fly. Well, we've looked into the relevant information, and Mr. Show himself has denied this claim. That's just her being modest. Linda wrapped her arm around Helen. My Helen has ambitions. Not only does your school fail to support her, but you also allow other students to isolate her. I stood in the corner, quietly turning on the voice recording function on my phone. Student Helen. The principal turned to Helen, trying to keep a distance. Are you sure you want to continue like this? All the way until the college entrance exams. Helen lifted her head, the sweat stains on her neck clearly visible. Of course, this is the promise I made with my brother Edward. She pulled out her phone, the lock screen showing a photo of Edward. Look, my brother even sent me a message yesterday, saying he's proud of me. The principal looked to Teacher Wang for help, who sighed and said, Linda, at least let Helen change into clean clothes. No, Helen suddenly screamed. The scent on the clothes is part of the exam luck. No one can touch it. In the end, under the school's strong insistence, both sides compromised. Helen could continue her exam luck plan, but she had to sit in the last row of the classroom and use the school-provided disinfectant spray every day. What a terrible school. Linda was still grumbling as they left. Helen, let's not stoop to their level. Helen proudly linked arms with her mother, deliberately bumping into me as she passed by. Sis, are you jealous of me? I calmly looked at the red rash beginning to appear on her neck. How could I be? Wishing you success. After school, instead of heading straight home, I went to the biology teaching and research office. Professor James, our school's specially appointed Tsinghua University PhD, was grading assignments. Sarah, he looked up, his eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses filled with a smile. Here to ask a question. I shook my head and pulled a small petri dish from my backpack. Professor, could you take a look at this for me? Inside the petri dish was a sample of skin flakes I had secretly collected from Helen's pillow 3 days ago, which had already grown a suspicious layer of mold. Professor James took the petri dish, his expression gradually turning serious. Where did this come from? My sister's. I carefully chose my words. She's been developing some unusual hygiene habits lately. After a careful examination, he furrowed his brow and said, this is a mixed infection of Staphylococcus aureus and a certain type of fungus, which is very dangerous. He looked at me seriously. The patient needs immediate medical attention and improved hygiene conditions. I thanked Professor James and was about to leave when he called me back. Sarah, I've been meaning to ask you, have you ever considered applying for Tsinghua University's independent recruitment program? I was taken aback. My family's financial situation isn't very good. Precisely because of that, he handed me a form. The self-strengthening plan is designed for students like you. With your academic performance and biology competition awards, you have a very good chance. My hand trembled slightly as I took the form. In my past life, I had missed this opportunity due to family interference and was forced to take the regular college entrance exam. Thank you. I carefully put the form away. I'll think it over seriously. As I walked out of the school gate, the setting sun stretched my shadow long. My phone vibrated. A text from Linda. Where the hell are you? Hurry back and cook. Helen's hungry. When I got home, Helen was lying on the sofa watching Edward's live stream, surrounded by piles of snack wrappers. The inside of her exposed arm was covered in large red rashes. some of which had been scratched open and were oozing. "Sis," she said without looking up, "get me a glass of iced Coke." I walked into the kitchen and found only one last can of Coke left in the fridge. In my past life, I would have saved it for her, but this time, I pulled the tab and took a big gulp myself. "No more Coke," I said, walking out with the half-empty can. "Want some tap water?" Helen sat up abruptly. "You're lying." She suddenly widened her eyes. "What's that in your hand?" I shook the cola can. "This, the last one, I drank." You," she screamed, jumping up, her body odor pressing over like a wall. "That's my cola." Linda rushed in at the sound. What's wrong? Sis stole my cola." Helen began to sob, tears carving 2 trails through her greasy face. Without a word, Linda slapped me across the face. I had been prepared and tilted my head slightly to lessen the impact, but my cheek still stung with a burning pain. "You worthless scum," she shrieked. "Even your sister's things you'd snatch." I covered my face and calmly replied, "There's no name written on the jar. You dare talk back." Linda raised her hand to strike again, but Bob stopped her. "All right," he frowned at me. "Sarah, go buy some cola for your sister, and bring back some fried chicken too." I silently turned around, hearing Helen shout from behind, "Get the largest portion. Brother Edward had fried chicken today. I want some too." Leaving the residential area, I didn't head straight to the fast food restaurant but instead turned into the pharmacy next door. "What do you need?" the clerk asked warmly. I pointed to the dermatitis medicine in the counter. "That one, the cheapest." The clerk took out a white ointment. "This one is 15 yuan. It treats general dermatitis." No need to explain. I pulled out a crumpled banknote. "I'll take this." On the way back, I passed by a trash can and casually threw the ointment inside. The worse Helen's infection gets, the better it is for me. Thinking of this, the corner of my mouth involuntarily turned up. At dinner, Helen was devouring fried chicken, her greasy fingers swiping across her phone, occasionally letting out a silly giggle. I noticed the red rash on her arm had spread to the back of her hand. "Helen," I asked with feigned concern, "what's going on with your hand?" "This is a test from Brother Edward." She proudly displayed the rash. "The fan group says this is the body expelling negative energy. Once it's all out, I'll be able to ace the imperial exams." Bob actually nodded in agreement. "That makes sense. Ancient cultivators would also experience similar situations when they went into seclusion." Linda even more tenderly stroked Helen's head. Our Helen really knows how to endure hardship. I lowered my head to eat, forcing myself not to laugh out loud. In the evening, I used studying as an excuse to hide in my room and organize the day's findings. The recording from the principal's office, Professor James's diagnosis, the photo of Helen's arm, and that precious Tsinghua self-enrollment form. My phone suddenly vibrated. It was a reply from my aunt. "Sarah, oh my goodness, after all these years, are you doing okay?" I stared at the screen, my eyes suddenly growing warm. My aunt was my birth mother's closest cousin. In my past life, when I was at my most desperate, she had tried to help me, but Linda had shut her out, claiming it was a family matter. After hesitating for a long time, I replied, "Aunt, I need help." After sending the message, I opened the window and took a deep breath. The night breeze carried the warmth of early summer. From Helen's room in the distance came the sound of her infatuated laughter as she watched Edward's live stream, along with the rustling noise of her scratching her skin. I gently closed the window, turned to a fresh page in my notebook, and wrote down today's discovery. Helen bragged in the fan group that her parents had agreed to sell their house to support her idol chasing, and she even posted a photo of the property deed. The evidence was accumulating bit by bit, like the rashes on Helen's body, spreading silently. "Mom, Helen has fainted." On Saturday morning, my screams shattered the peace at home. In truth, Helen had started talking nonsense since midnight, but I waited until dawn to discover it. Just to make the act more convincing, Linda kicked open Helen's door, and the sight before her made her let out a piercing scream. Helen was curled up on the bed, her face flushed, covered with a blanket printed with Edward's face. Her exposed arms and neck were covered with oozing rashes, some of which had already scabbed over, with the surrounding skin showing an abnormal purplish-red hue. "Helen, sweetheart," Linda rushed forward, then recoiled as if shocked by electricity. "Oh my God, she's burning up." Bob hurried over at the sound and turned pale instantly at the sight of his daughter. "Call an ambulance." I stood at the doorway, calmly observing everything. Helen's breathing was rapid and shallow, her lips dry and peeling. On the nightstand sat the half-finished Coke she had been drinking last night, the rim of the glass still stained with lipstick. the one she had deliberately applied to imitate the actress Edward liked. The ambulance arrived with sirens blaring, and the medical staff wrinkled their noses as soon as they entered the door. "What's that smell?" Linda stammered. "My daughter, she has an important exam." After examining her, the medical staff's expression changed abruptly. "A fever of 39.8 degrees, severe skin infection, this could be a sign of sepsis." He pulled back the blanket, exposing large areas of festering wounds on Helen's body, which emitted a foul odor. She hasn't bathed in at least 2 weeks, has she?" 1 month and 3 days, I whispered, making sure only the medical staff could hear. In the emergency room, the doctor examined the test report, his brow furrowed into a knot. "The patient is infected with methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or MRSA4 short, which is a superbug." He scanned us sternly. "Why did you wait until now to bring her to the hospital?" Linda stammered. "We thought it was just a common allergy." "An allergy?" The doctor pointed at Helen's festering skin. "These wounds are severely infected and suppurating. If you had waited another day, she might have needed an amputation." Bob's legs went weak, and he nearly collapsed to his knees. "Doctor, you must save my daughter." "Money is no object." The doctor issued a hospitalization order. "First, pay a deposit of $5,000, and an immediate intravenous injection of vancomycin is required." Upon hearing this number, Bob's expression changed slightly. I keenly noticed this detail, and memories from my past life surfaced. When he bought Helen the same watch as Edward's, he didn't even blink at $16,000. "Mom," I said softly, "I'll go home to get Helen's medical insurance card." Linda nodded absent-mindedly, her attention entirely on her phone. She was sending a message in Edward's fan group. "Please send blessings, my Helen is sick." Back home, I headed straight for Bob and Linda's bedroom. The health insurance card was in the drawer, but my real target was the locked nightstand. In my past life, I never found out what was inside it until the day I died. I snapped a piece of wire from a hairpin and gently fiddled with the lock. 5 minutes later, with a soft click, the drawer opened. Inside lay a black ledger and an envelope. I quickly flipped open the ledger, and the records from the past 3 months made me gasp. April 15th, sold 1 gold necklace, Sarah's birth mother's keepsake, 18,000 yuan, used for Helen's birthday support. May 1st, early withdrawal of fixed deposit, loss of interest 3,245 yuan, purchased Edward fan meeting ticket for 18,888 yuan. May 20th, borrowed 30,000 yuan, monthly interest 5%, purchased 1 exclusive photo opportunity voucher. My hands trembled slightly. A photo opportunity voucher, the kind that allows you to take a solo photo with an idol. 30,000 yuan, more than my university tuition. Inside the envelope was a gold embossed card that read, "Edward private photo session, scheduled for 1 week after the college entrance exams." At the very bottom, there was a line of fine print, "VIP privilege, may bring 1 family member backstage." I quickly used my phone to take photos of the key pages of the ledger and the group photo voucher, then put them back exactly as they were. As I turned around, I caught sight of a hospital payment slip on Linda's dressing table, a prepayment of 5,000 yuan, and next to it was a brand of essential oil endorsed by Edward, with the receipt showing a price of 5,888 yuan. I sneered coldly, picked up the medical insurance card and Helen's change of clothes, though she wouldn't need them at all, as the doctor would surely require professional care. On the way back to the hospital, I stopped by a print shop, printed 2 copies of the photos I had just taken, sent one to my aunt's house, and hid the other inside the cover of the book I often borrowed from the library, 100 Years of Solitude. In the hospital room, Helen was already on an 4 drip but was still talking nonsense. "Brother Edward, I'll come find you as soon as the exam is over." Linda was sitting by the bedside, live streaming Helen's condition to the fan group. "The doctor said Helen loves Edward too much, and her body can't handle such intense affection." I fought the urge to roll my eyes and handed the medical insurance card to Bob. "Dad, the doctor said we need to pay a deposit of 5,000. He scratched his head in frustration. "Got it." Then, lowering his voice, he said to Linda, "We'll have to withdraw that money for now." Linda immediately objected. "No way, that's for Edward's birthday support." I pretended not to hear, walked to the bedside to tuck Helen in, and took the opportunity to turn on the phone's recording function. Slipping it under the pillow. "Mom," Helen suddenly opened her eyes, her voice hoarse. "I dreamed of Edward. He said I would definitely be the top scorer." Linda's eyes immediately welled up with tears. "Of course you will, you're the best, but," Helen weakly lifted her hand with the needle in it, "I feel so sick. Will I die?" don't talk nonsense, Bob snapped sharply. It's just a minor infection. The doctor happened to come in for rounds and sneered upon hearing this, a minor infection. The mortality rate of MRSA is around 20%, and it could be even higher if it develops into sepsis. Linda finally panicked. Doctor, we must use the best medicine. The best medicine is maintaining hygiene, the doctor said sternly. The patient must take a bath every day, and all wounds must be disinfected and bandaged. No, Helen suddenly struggled to sit up, pulling on the 4-tube. You can't take a shower, it'll wash away the exam luck. The doctor looked at us in shock. What exam luck? It's a study method, I explained quietly. While watching my parents' expressions, Linda quickly smoothed things over. Doctor, we'll be careful when we get home. Attention, the doctor raised his voice. The patient needs to be hospitalized for observation for at least 3 days. In the end, Helen was admitted to the hospital. When Bob went to pay the fees, I overheard him on the phone borrowing money. Leo, can you lend me $5,000? Helen is in the hospital. What? 8% interest. That's way too high. Meanwhile, Linda was busy fundraising in her fan group. Helen has fallen ill for Edward. Please support her. Family. I sat in the corner of the hospital room, taking out my biology textbook to review, occasionally glancing up at Helen. She was grinning foolishly at a photo of Edward on her phone, not looking like a patient at all. Sarah, Linda suddenly called me. You stay here and take care of Helen. I'm going home to get some things. I obediently nodded, knowing full well that she was going to prepare for Edward's birthday support. Tomorrow was the academic idol's birthday. In the evening, Bob also found an excuse to leave, leaving me alone to look after Helen. The 4-drip contained a sedative, and she quickly fell asleep. I quietly took out the phone from under the pillow and checked the recording. It perfectly captured Helen's crazy words. Even if I die from illness, I still want to see brother Edward. Then, I pulled out my exercise book from my backpack and started solving problems under the dim light of the hospital room. The nurse asked in surprise during her rounds, "Don't you have an exam tomorrow? Why are you still studying?" I smiled and said, "I'm used to it." She shook her head and walked away. I heard her whisper to her colleague, "This family is really strange. The older daughter works so hard, but the younger one." 3 days later, the doctor reluctantly agreed to discharge Helen, but instructed that her wounds must be cleaned daily and she must take her medication on time. As soon as Helen got home, she threw the medicine into a drawer and took out the Top Scholar essential oil, endorsed by Edward, applying it all over herself. "Brother Edward said this will bless me to get a perfect score," she exclaimed excitedly. Spinning around, the freshly scabbed wounds on her body began to ooze blood again from the friction of her clothes. Linda not only didn't stop her but even helped apply it to her hair, saying, "Put on more." I heard this essential oil contains wood shavings from the pen used by a top scholar. I suppressed my disgust and silently packed my exam supplies, admission ticket, ID card, 2B pencils. I checked each item 3 times. In my previous life, I almost missed the exam because I helped Helen treat her wound. The night before the college entrance exam, Helen suddenly burst into my room, her body emitting a strong scent of essential oil that smelled like a bottle of cheap perfume had been spilled. "Sis." Her eyes sparkled. "Look what I found." She was holding something like a test tube, inside of which were a few strands of hair. "What is this?" "Brother Edward's hair," she exclaimed excitedly, waving her hands around. "A sister from the fan group sold it to me for 5,000 yuan. I'm going to take it into the exam hall with me." I stared at the test tube, suddenly remembering Bob complaining a few days ago that his credit card was maxed out. 5,000 yuan. That was equivalent to 3 months of my living expenses. "Wishing you success," I said calmly, turning to continue tidying the school uniform I would wear tomorrow, faded from washing but clean and neat. Helen curled her lip. How hypocritical. She suddenly leaned in close, her scent nearly suffocating me. "I know you're jealous of me because Mom and Dad only love me." I didn't argue, just looked at the unhealed wound on her neck. "Remember to take your medicine on time." "Eat my ass." She rolled her eyes. "Brother Edward said Western medicine disrupts the human body's magnetic field." Late at night, I lay in bed, listening to Helen next door murmuring to Edward's poster, "Brother Edward, tomorrow I'll be taking the exam with your blessings." I pulled out the phone hidden under my mattress and sent a message to my aunt. "The college entrance exam starts tomorrow. Everything is going according to plan." Outside the window, a bright moon hung high in the sky. Tomorrow, the battle would begin. 6. On the first day of the college entrance exam, I woke up at 5 in the morning. It was still pitch black outside, but but the light in Helen's room next door was already on. She must have stayed up all night again, busy spamming her fan group. I quietly finished washing up and checked the admission ticket, ID card, and exam supplies in the transparent file bag 3 times. In my past life, I almost missed the exam because I helped Helen look for her lost admission ticket. In this life, I won't even spare her a second glance. Sis, Helen suddenly kicked open the bathroom door, and the complex smell of essential oils, sweat, and medicine on her instantly filled the cramped space. Look at my admission ticket. She waved a modified admission ticket. The original ID photo had been replaced with a sticker of Edward's face, surrounded by hearts and glittery stickers. It would be considered cheating, I said calmly, squeezing past her. Not at all. She raised her head proudly, the scabbed wound on her neck cracking a little more. The Proctors are all fans of brother Edward. I couldn't be bothered to argue and went straight to the kitchen to boil 2 eggs. In my past life, I was too nervous to eat breakfast and ended up with a stomachache during the Chinese exam. This time, I'm making sure everything goes perfectly. Linda got up unusually early to prepare a top scorer's breakfast for Helen, a fried dough stick and 2 eggs arranged in the shape of 100. Mom, Helen screamed, pushing her plate away. Brother Edward had a Western breakfast for his college entrance exam. I want bacon and eggs. Linda immediately panicked. It's too late to go buy some now. I don't care. Helen started throwing things. If I don't do well, it'll be all your fault. Bob quickly pulled out his wallet and handed it to Linda. Go quickly and come back fast. I watched this scene, silently ate my own egg, and then took an extra one. It seemed Helen wasn't going to touch that fried dough stick. At 7:30, we finally headed out. Helen was wearing an Edward support t-shirt and ripped jeans. Her hair greasy and clumped, and her body smeared with so-called top scholar essential oil, which shimmered with an eerie glow under the sunlight. Helen, I asked with feigned concern, did you bring the medicine the doctor prescribed? She rolled her eyes. I told you, that medicine disrupts the magnetic field. She mysteriously pulled a small cloth pouch from her bag. Look, this is incense ash from the temple in Edward's hometown. It's way better than any stupid medicine. Outside the examination hall, many candidates and their parents had already gathered. As soon as we appeared, the crowd immediately stirred. Helen's smell was simply too pungent. What's that smell? A girl covered her nose. It seems to be coming from that person. Helen held her head high, as if those strange looks were expressions of admiration for her. She even deliberately walked closer to the crowd, so that more people could share in the aura of the top scorer. Ugh, a boy retched directly. Is this some kind of biological weapon? The invigilator walked over with a frown. This student, hello, teacher. Helen bowed exaggeratedly. I'm Edward's fiancée. The entire room fell silent instantly, then erupted into uproarious laughter. The corner of my mouth twitched as I struggled to hold back my laughter. This scene hadn't happened in my past life. It seemed Helen's madness had leveled up again. The proctor said sternly, "Student, please show your exam admission ticket." Helen proudly handed over the ticket plastered with photos of Edward. The teacher's expression looked as if she had swallowed a fly. This is not in compliance with the regulations. Why not? Helen screamed. This is discrimination. I'm going to file a complaint. The farce finally ended with Helen being assigned to a backup exam room alone. Before leaving, she glared at me viciously. It's all your fault. If you hadn't made me angry this morning, I wouldn't have been targeted. I blinked innocently. I didn't do anything. The Chinese language exam went smoothly. I focused on answering the questions and even finished 20 minutes early. As I walked out of the exam hall, I saw Helen surrounded by several teachers, still arguing about her exam admission ticket. Sis, she rushed over and grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my flesh. They wouldn't let me bring the incense ash into the exam hall. They even said I had a strange smell on me. I gently pulled my arm away. You really haven't taken a bath in a long time, you. Her eyes widened, and she suddenly raised her hand to hit me. Student Helen, a proctor sternly shouted, please watch your behavior. Helen reluctantly lowered her hand and threatened me in a low voice. Just you wait, I'll deal with you after the exam. When I got home, Linda had already prepared a sumptuous lunch, all of Helen's favorite dishes. Bob had even taken half a day off to accompany her for the exam. Helen, how did the exam go? Linda asked eagerly. Helen slammed her chopsticks down. I'm so angry I could die. They wouldn't let me use the pen blessed by brother Edward, and they locked me in a little dark room to take the test. What? Bob stood up abruptly, slamming the table. I'll go talk to their supervisor tomorrow. exactly. Linda was also filled with righteous indignation. Our Helen is a future top scholar. I ate quietly, listening to them discuss which Education Bureau official to complain about. In my previous life, I had tried to explain the exam rules, only to be scolded as biting the hand that feeds me. Before the afternoon math exam, I saw the invigilator holding an air freshener, standing guard at the entrance of the backup exam room. Helen walked in with her head held high, like a martyr about to face execution. The next day was even worse. Helen insisted on wearing the same outfit as Edward, a trendy t-shirt printed with the words, Top Student Supreme, priced at 2,999 yuan. The problem was, it was a thin summer t-shirt, and today the temperature had plummeted with the rain. Achoo! In the exam room, Helen's sneezes could be heard through the walls. Halfway through the exam, she actually raised her hand to request a pause because Edward had a dream telling her to choose C for this question. For the last subject, English, Helen was clearly not in her right state. Her eyes were bloodshot, her lips were chapped, and halfway through the exam, she suddenly stood up and shouted, "This reading comprehension is an exclusive interview with Brother Edward. I know all of it." The invigilation record shows that she filled her answer sheet with Edward's lyrics and fans' slogans, and even drew a big heart in the essay section, with the words, "Edward, marry me," written inside. When the bell rang for the end of the last subject, I let out a long sigh of relief. No matter the outcome, I had done my best. As I walked out of the exam hall, I saw Helen being kept behind by the head teacher for a talk, and she was hysterically screaming, "Persecution, sis." She suddenly rushed over and grabbed me. "Hurry home, I need to pack my luggage." I pretended to be confused. "What luggage?" "Brother Edward has a private meet and greet in Hangzhou tomorrow," she exclaimed excitedly, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I bought a plane ticket and a VIP seat." I narrowed my eyes. In my past life, she had indeed disappeared for 3 days after the exams and returned with suspicious red marks on her neck, but back then, the whole family was immersed in the grief of Helen's failure in the college entrance exams, and no one looked into it further. When we got home, Helen immediately locked herself in her room to pack. I overheard her on the phone. "Yes, the earliest flight tomorrow. Money is not an issue, of course. Special services are a must." At dinner, Bob asked about the exam results, and Helen confidently claimed she would score at least 650 points. "Absolutely." Linda served her a piece of fish. "Helen has her Brother Edward's blessings." Bob nodded with satisfaction. "Once the results are out, we'll host a grand celebration for your admission." I kept my head down and focused on my meal, thinking it would indeed be grand. When Helen's score of less than 300 points was exposed, late at night, pretending to be asleep, I heard Helen tiptoe out the door. I immediately got up and followed her from a distance. She took a taxi straight to the airport, while I rode a shared bike and took a shortcut to get there. The airport was brightly lit, and Helen was excitedly tapping her feet at the check-in counter. I hid behind a pillar, capturing the entire process of her checking in. "Flight MU 5431 to Hangzhou is now boarding." The announcement echoed through the terminal, and Helen couldn't wait to dash toward the security checkpoint. I didn't try to stop her. Instead, I turned and headed straight for the airport police station. "Officer, I'd like to report a possible fraud case," I said, pulling out my phone to show the duty officer a photo of Helen. "My sister just turned 18, she's obsessed with chasing celebrities, and now she's flying to meet some online influencer. She even bought some special service." The officer immediately became alert. "Do you have any information about the other party?" I pulled up Edward's photo and the screenshot of the 18,888 yuan meet and greet. "It's this celebrity. I heard their studio often organizes these gray area transactions." After completing the statement, I anonymously contacted several entertainment media outlets, providing Helen's flight information and screenshots of the chat in Edward's fan group. Then I sat on the airport bench, watching Helen board the plane with excitement. My phone vibrated. It was Linda calling repeatedly. I turned it off directly and leisurely rode my bike home. The house was already in complete chaos. Bob was pacing furiously in the living room, and Linda's makeup was smeared from crying. "Where the hell have you been?" Bob roared at me as soon as he saw me. "Your sister is missing." I pretended to be surprised. "How could that be? She didn't say anything to me." "You..." He raised his hand to hit me, but suddenly his expression changed, and he clutched his chest, collapsing to the ground. "Bob," Linda screamed. The ambulance arrived with sirens blaring, and the doctor diagnosed it as an acute myocardial infarction. In the hospital corridor, Linda waited for the surgery results while still sending messages in the fan group, please send your blessings. Helen's dad is sick, oh, and I'll transfer the money for Edward's birthday support tomorrow. I watched coldly, recording everything with my newly purchased backup phone. At 3 in the morning, Bob was out of danger. I excused myself to buy breakfast and left the hospital, finding an internet cafe to check the news. Sure enough, #EdwardFan skips college entrance exam to chase idol hashtag was already trending. In the video, Helen was surrounded by media at Hangzhou airport, shouting into the camera. Edward and I are truly in love. He promised to make our relationship public once I get into university. The comments section exploded. Is this girl crazy? I heard she filled her college entrance exam essay with Edward's lyrics. How did her parents raise her? I closed the webpage with satisfaction and returned to the hospital. Linda was raging into the phone. What? Helen made the news. Who leaked it? Seeing me, she immediately ordered, Sarah, go online and issue a statement saying those media outlets are spreading rumors. I blinked innocently. Mom, my phone is dead. The first thing Bob said upon waking up was, where's Helen? Linda stammered. She went to a classmate's house to play. Bullshit. Bob struggled to sit up. I saw the news. That shameless thing. Bob. Linda grew anxious. Helen was framed by the media. Watching this farce unfold, I silently noted down another piece of evidence. On my phone, my aunt sent a message. The materials have been received. My lawyer friend says we have a good chance of winning. Outside the window, the sun slowly rises. In 2 more weeks, the college entrance exam results will be announced. I look forward to that day. 7. On the day the college entrance exam results were released, I made a point of getting up early. In the mirror, I slowly combed my hair and tied it into a neat ponytail. In my previous life, on this day, I missed the time to check my scores because I was trying to stop Helen from committing suicide. By the time I rushed to school, everyone was discussing my score of 668, while Helen was hiding in the bathroom, crying and wailing. My phone vibrated. It was a message from my homeroom teacher. Mr. Wang, Sarah, the results are out. Come to school quickly. I quietly left the house without disturbing my family, who were still asleep. Helen had been grounded by Bob since returning from Hangzhou, and Linda had been comforting her all night. They had probably just fallen asleep not long ago. The morning air was exceptionally fresh. I took a deep breath and slowly walked toward the school. The entrance was already crowded with students and parents, some cheering excitedly, others crying in each other's arms. Sarah, Teacher Wang waved to me from a distance, her face beaming with an irrepressible smile. Guess what your score is? I looked at her calmly. 668 points. Teacher Wang's eyes widened. How did you? Never mind. Come quickly and see the detailed scores. In the office, several teachers gathered around the computer. When they saw me come in, they all gave me a thumbs up. My report card showed Chinese 138, Math 145, English 142, Science 243, total score 668, ranking 79th in the province. Sarah, the principal, walked over personally and patted my shoulder. You've brought honor to our school. I smiled politely. Thank you, principal. By the way, Teacher Wang suddenly lowered her voice. Your sister, her grades. I looked at her computer screen, and Helen's transcript was right there in plain sight. Chinese 56, Math 32, English 48, Science 150, total score 286, provincial ranking. I didn't bother to read further. How did she get 150 in science? I was a bit puzzled. Teacher Wang gave a bitter smile. She doodled on the answer sheet, so she was given half the base score according to the rules. Just as we were talking, my phone suddenly started vibrating wildly. The screen showed an incoming call from Mom. I pressed the answer button, and Linda's hysterical crying immediately erupted. Sarah, come back quickly. Helen is going to jump off the building. The office instantly fell silent, with everyone staring at me. I calmly replied, I'm checking my grades at school. I'll be right back. After hanging up the phone, Teacher Wang asked with concern, do you need any help? No. I folded the report card and put it in my pocket. This is a family matter. After leaving the school, I didn't head straight home. Instead, I turned into a nearby print shop and made 10 copies of my report card. In my past life, I returned home empty-handed, and Helen, in a fit of hysteria, tore my original report card to shreds, leaving me without the crucial proof I needed when applying for scholarships. A crowd had gathered outside our front door, and from upstairs came Helen's heart-wrenching cries. I don't believe it. There must be some mistake. I have my brother Edward watching over me. I pushed through the crowd and went upstairs to find Helen wearing an Edward fan t-shirt, straddling the balcony railing with both legs dangling outside. Linda was kneeling on the floor, weeping and pleading, while Bob stood nearby, his face ashen, clutching Helen's report card in his hand. Helen, Linda spotted me and clung to me like a lifeline. Tell your sister that her grades can be rechecked. All eyes turned to me. Helen turned her head, her greasy hair sticking to her face, her eyes swollen like peaches. Sis, my score, there must be a mistake, right? I slowly walked closer, pulling a piece of paper from my pocket. This is my report card. Helen snatched it away, her eyes quickly scanning the numbers, her face turning from red to pale. 6,668, her voice trembled. Impossible, you clearly forced me to take a shower, Sarah, Linda shouted sharply. Now is not the time to talk about this. I calmly looked at Helen. The deadline for the review application is 3 o'clock this afternoon. Helen suddenly jumped down from the railing and lunged at me. It's all your fault, it's all because of you. Her sharp nails scratched my cheek, leaving a burning pain. If you hadn't forced me to take a bath, I could have been the top scorer like Edward. I took a step back, dodging her attack, while catching a glimpse of someone downstairs holding up a phone to record. It seemed the media had already caught wind of the situation. Helen, Bob finally spoke up. Stop making a scene, Dad. Helen turned to her father. You promised to throw me a college celebration party. What do we do now? Bob's face turned ashen, and he suddenly clutched his chest. The after-effects of his last heart attack hadn't fully subsided. Linda quickly supported him but still managed to comfort Helen. Don't worry, sweetie, you can retake the exams. The doorbell suddenly rang. I went downstairs to answer it and found several young people with press badges standing outside. Hello, we're from the City Daily. We'd like to interview Helen. I stepped aside to let them in. She's upstairs. The reporters swarmed in, their cameras and microphones aimed at Helen, who was still sobbing. Linda immediately switched to a smiling face. Oh, dear reporters, our Helen was just too nervous. Actually, her grades are usually very good. A sharp-eyed female reporter noticed the transcript in my hand. This student, are you also taking the college entrance exam this year? Before I could answer, Helen screamed, don't film her. She's not my sister. The reporters were startled by the sudden outburst, but their professional instincts immediately told them there was a big story here. A male reporter quietly asked his colleague, is this the girl who chased her idol all the way to the airport, the one from the internet? Exactly, I heard someone whisper in response, the one with the 286 points. Linda's expression turned grim. Comrade reporters, our Helen just underperformed. Linda, the female reporter interrupted her, your daughter claimed at the airport that she was in a romantic relationship with Edward. What do you have to say about that? Linda was momentarily speechless, while Bob's face darkened directly. What romantic relationship? Just then, Helen's phone suddenly rang with a special notification sound. She reflexively grabbed her phone, and her face instantly lit up. Brother Edward posted on Weibo. Everyone gathered to look, only to see Edward's studio official account release a statement, serious statement. Recently, so-called fans have made false statements in public, claiming to have an improper relationship with Mr. Edward. This company solemnly declares that Mr. Edward has always abided by laws and regulations, maintaining a normal distance from all fans, with absolutely no crossing of boundaries. For individuals spreading false information, this company reserves the right to pursue legal action. Helen's face instantly turned deathly pale. No, it can't be, Brother Edward clearly said. She frantically checked her phone. I was kicked out of the fan group. The reporters excitedly recorded the scene, with camera flashes going off one after another. Linda tried to stop them. Stop filming, my daughter needs to rest. The female reporter turned to me. Classmate, can you talk about your college entrance exam results? I calmly handed over the transcript. 668 points, ranked 79th in the province. Wow, the journalists exclaimed, their cameras immediately turning toward me. Do you have any study secrets? Focus on studying and stay away from chasing celebrities, I said calmly. This sentence acted like a fuse, instantly igniting Helen's anger. Sarah, you bitch. She lunged at me, trying to snatch my report card. You must have cheated. The scene descended into chaos. Bob roared at the journalists to leave. Linda was busy trying to calm Helen down, and I stood in the corner, calmly observing the commotion. After the reporters left, Helen collapsed on the floor, wailing loudly, while Linda wiped away tears. Beside her, Bob sat on the sofa with a grim expression, clutching the remote control in his hand. The local news was broadcasting the various reactions to the release of college entrance exam results, and the screen clearly showed Helen on the balcony, about to jump. "Sarah," Bob suddenly spoke up, "come here." I walked over to him, and he looked me up and down. 668 points. "What kind of school can you get into? Tsinghua or Peking University would be no problem," I replied calmly. Linda suddenly looked up. "What about the tuition? Figure it out yourself," Bob said coldly. "The family's money needs to be saved for Helen to repeat the year." I smiled, pulling a folder from my backpack. "No need, Dad. I've collected some materials here that you should take a look at." Bob frowned as he took the folder. Inside were the evidence I had meticulously gathered: records of Helen's fan expenses, proof of tuition misappropriation, photos of the family account book, screenshots of Helen bragging about selling the house, and the recording of, "I won't give you a single cent for tuition. This is..." Bob's hands began to tremble, and what's more, I opened my phone and played a recording of Helen saying on her sickbed, "Even if I die from illness, I must see Brother Edward." Linda's face turned deathly pale. "Sarah, I applied for student loans and scholarships," I said calmly. "Also, Professor James recommended me for Tsinghua's self-strengthening program, and I've already passed the preliminary review." Helen suddenly got up from the floor, her eyes red. "You've been scheming against us." "I was just protecting myself." I looked at her. "Didn't you all decide to sacrifice me a long time ago?" Bob stood up abruptly. "Sarah, how can you speak to your parents like that?" "Parents?" I sneered. "From the day my birth mother passed away, I haven't had any parents." Linda suddenly rushed over, trying to snatch my phone. "Delete it, delete all those recordings." I easily dodged her. "They're already backed up, both in the cloud and with my lawyer." "Lawyer?" Bob's face changed. Just then, the doorbell rang again. I walked over to open the door, and my aunt was standing outside with a middle-aged man in a well-tailored suit. "Sarah," my aunt said sympathetically, gently touching the scratches on my face, "Lawyer Lee is here." Lawyer Lee walked into the living room, glanced around, and then said in a businesslike tone, "Mr. Bob, I am here on behalf of my client, Sarah, regarding the inheritance matters of her biological mother." "What inheritance?" Linda screamed. "That worthless stuff was sold off long ago." Attorney Lee remained unmoved. "According to the will of Sarah's biological mother, the deposits and jewelry under her name should be inherited by Sarah. After investigation, it was found that you have disposed of these assets without authorization." Bob slumped on the sofa, his face ashen. Helen, on the other hand, looked bewildered by everything, as if she hadn't yet recovered from the betrayal of her idol. "Sarah," Linda suddenly knelt down, "Mom is begging you. Can you stop making a scene? Helen is already suffering enough." I took a step back. "Mom, you've never treated me as your daughter, so there's no need to pretend to be a loving mother now." Attorney Lee handed over a document. "Mr. Bob, this is the property recovery notice. Also, regarding Sarah's university tuition, she can handle it herself." Bob roared, "I won't pay a single cent." "Perfect," I said with a smile. "I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore either." My aunt hugged my shoulder sympathetically. "Sarah, pack your things and come with me." I went upstairs to pack my luggage, though there wasn't much to bring: a few faded clothes, a photo of my birth mother, and the notebook that recorded everything. Helen blocked the doorway, her eyes filled with resentment. "Do you think you've won?" I stopped in my tracks and turned to look at her. "Helen, do you know Edward's real grades?" She was taken aback. "What? His college entrance exam score last year was only 402, I said softly. "The so-called city's top scorer was a story the company paid for." "You're lying," Helen screamed. "Brother Edward is a top student." I shrugged. "Believe it or not." Then I dragged my suitcase downstairs. Linda was still crying and pleading, while Bob was roaring at Lawyer Lee. I calmly walked past them and stopped at the door. "By the way, reporters will probably soon uncover the truth about Helen and Edward's private meeting. You'd better prepare your statements." Helen's scream came from upstairs. "Sarah, I hate you." I didn't look back. Striding out of the cage that had trapped me for 2 lifetimes, the sunlight shone on my face, warm and bright. My phone vibrated. A message from Professor James. "Congratulations, your Tsinghua University admission letter has arrived, with a full scholarship." I took a deep breath and replied, "Thank you, teacher, a new life is beginning." Behind me, the cries and shouts from that house grew fainter and fainter, eventually disappearing in the summer breeze. 4 years later, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the endless stream of traffic on Chang'an Avenue. My phone vibrated, and the screen lit up with an incoming call from Professor James. "Sarah, I heard you got promoted." Professor James's familiar voice came through, the youngest investment director. "Well done." I chuckled softly, "Thanks to your recommendation back." Then, by the way, he shifted the topic, "That sister of yours, have you been in touch with her recently?" I look out the window, where the sunlight refracts off the glass curtain wall with a blinding glare. "No, why, I just got back from my hometown." Professor James sighed. "Your father, his condition isn't good." After hanging up the phone, I open the old phone I haven't used in a long time. In WeChat, there's a message from Bob sent 3 months ago. "Sarah, Dad is sick, can you lend some money?" I didn't reply, but now, perhaps it's time to settle this. As the high-speed train pulled into my hometown station, I felt a momentary daze, for years had passed, and this city felt both familiar and strange. Dressed in a proper business suit and pulling a carry-on suitcase, I stepped out of the platform, a far cry from the girl who had fled with a cheap suitcase 4 years ago. Director Sarah, the driver, Xiao Chen, took my luggage. "Shall we go to the hotel first, or Sunshine Garden Community?" I gave the address of my former residence. The neighborhood was much more dilapidated than I remembered. In the security booth, a hunched figure was tidying up the registration book. When he looked up, I almost didn't recognize him. Bob, my father, once a spirited middle school teacher, now with a face full of wrinkles and graying hair. "Sarah, Sarah," he widened his eyes, the pen in his hand falling to the ground. I looked at him calmly. "I heard you were sick." He nervously wiped his hands on his uniform. "Just a minor issue. It's good that you're back. Where's Helen?" I got straight to the point. Bob's expression instantly stiffened. "She is at home." I followed him into the residential area, drawing surprised glances from the neighbors. Aunt Xiao was hanging clothes downstairs and immediately came up to me when she saw me. "Sarah, is it really you? I heard you're a leader at a big company in Beijing now." I smiled and nodded. "Hello, Aunt Xiao. Oh my, you've really made something of yourself." She looked me up and down. "Not like some people," she said meaningfully, glancing at Bob, who squandered their entire house. Bob lowered his head and walked away quickly. I said goodbye to Aunt Xiao and followed him. The door of what was once home was adorned with faded Spring Festival couplets. Bob's hand trembled slightly as he fumbled for the key, pushing the door open. A musty smell mixed with the scent of cheap air freshener hit us. In the living room, Linda was sorting through a pile of health products. When she saw me, the box in her hand fell to the floor with a thud. "Sheng, Sarah is back." She forced a smile. "Helen, your sister is back." No response. I looked around. More than half the furniture was gone, and the wall still bore the adhesive marks from Helen's Edward posters. A few photos sat by the TV, all of Helen alone, not a single one with me. "Helen." Linda raised her voice, walking toward a tightly shut door. "Your sister is here to see you. Get out," came a hoarse shout from inside. "I don't have a sister." Linda smiled awkwardly. "She is in a bad mood." I walked straight to that door and gently pushed it open. Helen was curled up on the bed, wearing a dirty Edward fan t-shirt. She had gained quite a bit of weight compared to 4 years ago. Her hair was greasy and tangled, and the room was piled high with snack bags and empty drink bottles. "Helen," I called out to her. She slowly lifted her head, her eyes dull and lifeless, widening abruptly the moment she saw me. What are you doing here?" To laugh at me. I looked at her calmly. "I heard Dad is sick, so I came back to see him." Hypocrite. She grabbed a pillow and threw it at me. "Don't you wish we were dead?" The pillow landed softly at my feet. I noticed a few posters of Edward still hanging on the wall, but they had been scratched beyond recognition. "Helen," Linda rushed in. "How dare you speak to your sister like that?" Helen suddenly burst into hysterical laughter. "Sister, is she even worthy?" She staggered out of bed, pointing at my nose. "Do you know why she came back? To see how miserable we are." I took a step back, avoiding the foul odor emanating from her. "You've been retaking the exams for 3 years. Have you passed yet?" The word struck her like a knife. Helen's face twisted. If it weren't for you ruining my life, did I ruin it?" I sneered. "You chose this yourself, remember, not bathing can make you a top scholar." Helen let out a beast-like howl, grabbed something from the table, and threw it at me. A photo frame grazed my forehead and shattered on the floor. It was her photo, with Edward, which was actually photoshopped. "Enough," Bob suddenly roared. "Both of you, shut up." The room fell silent instantly. Helen was panting heavily, glaring at me fiercely. I bent down to pick up the photo, still chasing stars. Don't you know Edward is already out of the spotlight? You're lying, Helen screamed. Brother Edward is the best. I took out my phone and pulled up a news article. Academic idol Edward exposed for faking college entrance exam scores, actually only scored 402 points. Helen lunged to snatch the phone, but I easily dodged and continued reading. The agency admitted that the top scorer in the city title was bought through paid publicity. Impossible. Helen's voice began to tremble. This is just rumors spread by anti-fans. I clicked on a video, where Edward was clearly seen bowing his head and admitting to the fraud. Under the reporter's persistent questioning, Helen collapsed to the ground as if all her bones had been pulled out, her lips trembling, unable to utter a word. Helen, Linda rushed over to help her up, but was pushed away. It's all your fault. Helen suddenly turned to her parents. You were the ones who said Edward was a top student. You were the ones who told me to learn from him. Bob's face turned ashen. You're the one who's not living up to expectations. Who else can you blame? Seeing that another argument was about to erupt, I interrupted them. Dad, you said you were sick. Bob suddenly wilted. High blood pressure, heart problems too. The doctor said a stent is needed. How much? 50,000 or so. He didn't dare look me in the eyes. Linda immediately chimed in. Sarah, you're doing well now. This amount of money for you, I can pay, I said calmly, but there's a condition. Bob looked up, a glimmer of hope flashing in his eyes. What condition? First, pay me back my college tuition from 4 years ago, and my mother's inheritance. I turned to Linda. How much did the jewelry sell for? 180,000. Linda's face turned pale. Where did that much come from? Director Sarah. A voice suddenly came from outside the door. Do you need me to come in? I turned around to see the driver, Xiao Chen, standing at the door, with a middle-aged man in a sharp suit behind him. It was Lawyer Lee. Lawyer Lee. Bob took a step back in alarm. You, Mr. Bob. Lawyer Lee handed over a document in a businesslike manner. This is the settlement agreement from the inheritance dispute back then. Please take a look. Bob took the document with trembling hands, his face growing increasingly pale. This is too much, according to the bank statements, Lawyer Lee said calmly. Ms. Sarah's tuition and living expenses for 4 years of university totaled 158,000 yuan, plus the jewelry valued at 186,000 yuan, making a total of 344,000 yuan. Where would we get that much money? Linda screamed. The house is already mortgaged. I looked at Helen. How much did those Edward collectibles sell for? Helen suddenly looked up, her eyes filled with hatred. Don't you dare touch my things, Helen. Linda suddenly grabbed her hand. Those posters, those autographs, they could actually, no. Helen shook her off. Those are my last memories, I sneered coldly, taking an envelope out of my bag. Here is 10,000 yuan, enough for the hospital deposit. I placed the envelope on the table. As for the remaining money, I'll pay for the surgery once it's all paid back. Bob suddenly burst into tears. Sarah, Dad knows he was wrong. I was biased back then. No, you don't know. I opened my phone and played a recording. Sarah, I heard you're planning to apply for a student loan. Teacher, I suspect my family won't cover my college tuition. You'll have to figure out the tuition on your own. After all, your grades are excellent. Bob's voice was clearly recognizable in the recording. His face instantly lost its color. There's more. I played another clip. Helen is amazing. Wearing this watch will definitely help you get good grades. The money was well spent. Sarah, your Aunt Lucy's restaurant is hiring servers, $15 an hour. Bob slumped in his chair, unable to speak another word. Sarah. Linda suddenly knelt down. Mom is begging you. Your dad really might die. I took a step back. You should have thought of this day 4 years ago when you chose Helen. Helen suddenly lunged forward, trying to snatch the envelope, but I easily dodged, and she fell to the ground, letting out a painful groan. Helen, Linda immediately went to help her up, but shot me a resentful look. Are you satisfied now? Are you happy to see us like this? I shook my head and handed the envelope to Lawyer Lee. Give it directly to the hospital. It's earmarked for a specific purpose. Stepping out of what was once my home, I took a deep breath. Xiao Chen asked softly, Director Sarah, shall we head back to the hotel? Let's go somewhere first. I gave an address. Municipal No. 1 middle school. At the school gate, Teacher Wang was already waiting there. Seeing me, she waved excitedly. Sarah, it really is you. I walked up to her with a smile. Teacher Wang, it's been a long time. Oh, the big shot from Beijing is back. She looked me up and down. I heard you're a director at an investment company now. You really make your teacher proud. After exchanging pleasantries, I stated my purpose. Teacher Wang, I want to establish a scholarship fund specifically to help girls, like me. Teacher Wang's eyes instantly reddened. Good, that's wonderful, the school really needs this. As we walked and talked, passing by the teaching building, a familiar figure emerged from the restroom. It was Chen Shui, who used to sit behind Helen back then, now working as a trainee teacher. Sarah, senior, she exclaimed joyfully as she ran over. I've always wanted to thank you. I was stunned. Thank me. Back then, what happened to you? We all knew about it, she whispered. Later, I got into a teacher's college because I saw how hard you were working. A warmth spread through my heart. The struggles I once thought no one knew about had actually been seen by others all along. When I left the school, the setting sun stretched my shadow long. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Lawyer Lee. The hospitalization procedures have been completed. Bob insisted on staying in a regular ward. I replied, let him be. Then I dialed my aunt's number. Aunt, regarding the scholarship fund, I'd like to add another $1 million. After hanging up, I looked up at the sky. The girl filled with resentment 4 years ago can finally truly look forward now. As for Helen, the image of her slumped on the ground, clutching those cheap merchandise, flashed before my eyes. She chose idols, while I chose knowledge. She believed in the illusion of exam luck, while I trusted in real effort. Our fates were sealed 4 years ago. Director Sarah, the investment proposal from Huachuang has been placed on your desk. Secretary Xiao Zhang stood respectfully at the office door. I nodded and continued reviewing the documents in my hand. Outside the window, the lights of Beijing's CBD shone like a sea of stars. On the corner of the desk were a few photos. My graduation ceremony at Tsinghua University, the bell-ringing ceremony for the company's IPO, and a special group photo, me and a rural girl with a ponytail standing in front of a simple school building, holding her university admission letter high in her hand. My phone suddenly vibrated, showing an incoming call from Teacher Wang. Sarah, Teacher Wang's voice was filled with unconcealed joy. Rose has been admitted to Peking University, with a full scholarship. A slight smile touched the corner of my lips. Rose was the first girl I had helped through my scholarship fund. Her parents, who favored sons over daughters, had nearly forced her to drop out of school to work. That's wonderful, I'll go see her next week. I flipped open my schedule. It just so happens I need to attend the launch event for the Foundation's new project. After hanging up, I opened an encrypted folder on my computer. Inside were all the materials I had collected over the years, evidence of Helen's obsessive celebrity chasing, Bob's medical records, screenshots of Linda's comments in fan groups. My gaze lingered on a video, a disheveled Helen, holding up a poster of Edward, screaming at the airport. My phone rang again, this time from an unknown number. Excuse me, is this MS? Sarah, a formal male voice came through. This is the detention center. Your sister Helen has been detained for disturbing public order, and she requested to contact you. I twirled the pen in my hand, its cold gleam reflecting under the light. What exactly happened this afternoon at Terminal 3 of Capital Airport? She tried to break through security to chase after a celebrity and even bit a security guard. The other person paused. She seems mentally unstable, constantly shouting something about Brother Edward being framed. I closed my laptop with a crisp click. How much is the bail? 5,000. But she needs someone to vouch for her. I won't vouch for her. My voice was as calm as if discussing the weather, but I can help her get a lawyer. The fluorescent lights in the detention center were uncomfortably harsh, the smell of disinfectant mixed with an indescribable stench. I sat on a bench waiting, next to a sobbing young girl, also here to bail out a friend who had been chasing after a celebrity. MS. Sarah, a female police officer approached, her badge gleaming coldly on her uniform. Your sister is extremely agitated. The doctor recommends a psychiatric evaluation first. I nodded. Can I see her? The policewoman led me down a long corridor, our footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Helen was locked in a small interrogation room. Through the glass window, I saw her banging her head against the wall, muttering something under her breath. She had grown even heavier since our last meeting. Her greasy hair was matted into clumps, and the Edward fan t-shirt she wore was so dirty its original color was unrecognizable. Fresh scratches marked her face, and her fingernails were caked with black grime. Sis, she cried out when she saw me, lunging toward the door, her handcuffs clanking loudly. You're here to save me, right? They've framed me. I sat down across from her, deliberately keeping my distance to avoid the foul odor on her. I heard you bit the security guard. He deserved it. Helen's eyes were bloodshot, the corners of her mouth still stained with dried blood. He dared to stop me from seeing Brother Edward. I took out my phone and opened the pre-saved news article. Fated idol Edward secretly marries, wife is a wealthy second-generation fan. In the photo, Edward had his arm around a young girl's waist, beaming with joy. Helen stared at the screen, then suddenly screamed, "It's fake, it's all photoshopped, it was done by anti-fans, take a look at this." I pulled up another video, Edward admitting in a press conference that he had falsified his college entrance exam scores, with his 402-point transcript clearly visible. No, impossible. Helen shook her head frantically, oily hair flinging a few drops of unknown liquid. Brother Edward was forced, they threatened him. She suddenly grabbed my wrist, her nails digging deep into my flesh. Sis, believe me, help me, let's go confront Edward. I calmly pulled my hand back, took a disinfectant wipe from my bag, and cleaned my wrist. Helen, do you know how Mom and Dad are doing now? She blinked blankly, as if she had never considered this question. Dad had a stroke last year and now lives in a nursing home, unable to take care of himself. My voice carried no emotion. Linda works at a supermarket, earning $2,800 a month, and still has to pay off the debts you racked up chasing celebrities back then. Helen's expression twisted for a moment before returning to that fanatical look. They'll understand, once I help clear Edward's name. Understand, I sneered. Do you even know they sold their house to pay off your debts? They're living in a shantytown now. So what? Helen suddenly raised her voice. For Edward, anything is worth it. I stood up, looking down at her. You're truly pathetic, you're jealous of me, she screamed hysterically. You've always been jealous of my relationship with Brother Edward. A policewoman came in at the sound and held her down. I turned to leave, but Helen suddenly lunged forward and grabbed my leg. Sis, don't go, help me. I shook her off forcefully, and she fell to the ground, a red mark from the handcuffs appearing on her wrist. Helen. I stood at the door, looking back at her one last time. You deserve this. Stepping out of the detention center, the sunlight stung my face. I took a deep breath and dialed my lawyer's number. Attorney Lee, please help me prepare a statement officially announcing the severance of kinship with Helen. After hanging up, I sent another message to Teacher Wang. Could you send me a photo of Rose's admission letter? I'd like to post it on the Foundation's official website. On the high-speed train back to Beijing, I received a notice from the detention center. Helen had been forcibly hospitalized due to abnormal mental condition. Attached to the letter was a form requiring family members to sign for confirmation. Without even looking at it, I forwarded it directly to Attorney Lee for handling. My phone vibrated. A photo from Teacher Wang, Rose standing in the sunlight, holding up her Peking University admission letter high, her smile so bright it stung my eyes. I zoomed in on the photo, looking at the light spots reflected on the admission letter, and suddenly remembered that afternoon many years ago, when Helen suffocated me with a smelly sock outside the window. The scenery sped by. I opened my laptop and began revising the Foundation's funding plan for the next quarter. Sunlight streamed through the car window onto the keyboard, bright and warm. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.